Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to, after a long hiatus of coverage here on TRTN, tonight's coverage of the MSC GT3 Clubsport Series in Season 2 at Round 6 of the Championship. As always, it is me, Regan Clark, and you join us after a long-winded hiatus, as mentioned before, from coverage here on MSC, back into the holy grail, as it were, for Australian motorsports here at the New South Wales Mount Panorama Circuit. It located in Bathurst, New South Wales, founded in 1938, consisting of 23 turns and 3.8 miles of FIA Grade 3. We are on the site of hallowed ground here, home of the Bathurst 1000 in the Australian V8 Supercars Championship, and also home to the Intercontinental GT Challengers Bathurst 12-hour. This is a formidable circuit here, one of the most challenging of its kind. Some have described this as half Macau, half Monaco. Others have described it as half Macau, half Nürburgring. But all is too much the same. This is one of the toughest tracks going, and it is going to make for a very, very exciting race here at round 6 of the championship. Getting a look into the result out of last week's round with about 10 minutes left to go here in free practice. We find ourselves with a current mix of results, and we'll get on to the discussion of how this affects both the Pro and Am championships. For those of you not in the loop, this is a two-tiered championship system, Pro and Am. We'll get into those in a moment's time. Looking back at that last set of results out of round 5 of the championship at the Circuit Zolder, we saw a decisive victory for Ian Oates in the number 6 Porsche. Then Leroy Donald second and leading in the Am category after that race. Second place for the number 14, Robert Ogan in third, with Josh Harris in fourth, Antonio Angeletta in fifth, with Donnie Linton in sixth place, Mr. Burney in seventh, Salvatore Borgetto in eighth, Sean McNally in ninth, and Henro Fori rounds out that top 10. Christianis Lanieks in 11th place ahead of Sean Cox in 12th, Jonathan Barrett in 13th, Jonathan Curran in 14th, David Horton, sorry, I should say, in 15th, and Steph Hannes in 16th. 3 DNFs for Evans, Cardoso and Leatherby. Your Pro winner of that race, Ian Oates with Porsche. The Am winner, Leroy Donald with Ferrari. Fastest lap of that race, a 1:29.845 by Ian Oates. Looking at how this affects the Pro Championship standings, we're getting a look here. We'll find that Russell Nash, despite 2 races of hiatus, continues to lead, but that gap has started to come down quite a ways here, as we're looking now about 14 points between the leading pair, Nash and Oates. Oates now up to second after his recent spur of successes here in MSC. Lee Evans in third place, with Josh Harris in fourth, Donnie Linton in fifth, and Daniel Hatton in 6th place. Robert Ogan in 7th, Jonathan Curran in 8th, Tom Van Lorca in 9th, and Thomas Neymeyer rounds out the top 10. Jay Simpson in 11th and Edward Vickery in 12th place. Looking at the Am standings, we find a few more numbers here, as we find 13 drivers as opposed to the 12 in Pro. Leroy Donald leads with 91 points in division. Henro Fori second with 68 points. Jonathan Barrett in third with 62 points. Jason Leatherby in fourth with 58. Alfredo Pereira Vigo, who was originally a joint first after round 2 of the championship in Imola, was originally that joint first, is now down to the back of that top 5, 33 points for Pereira Vigo. Johnson in 6th with 25 points, McNally 7th with 20, Angeletta in 8th with 18 points, a single point ahead of Salvatore Borgetto in 9th place. David Horton rounds out that top 10 ahead of Steph Hannes and Christianis Lanieks, with Sean Cox in 13th with only 6 points. Now, we must consider with a few of these drivers, those were later entries into the championship. So looking back to those results here, you can see a nice spread of Pro and Am talent coming out of round 5. Today looks to be no different, as things are looking very, very exciting here as we get towards the end of free practice. About 6 minutes and 40 left to go. Looking at those previous wins over the course of the championship at large, finds ourselves with an erroneous result here after 3 rounds back-to-back of domination, of which we were able to cover rounds 2 and 3. In Italy and the United States, we saw back-to-back wins for Russell Nash, and that became a hat-trick with his first result at the season premiere in Great Britain. In Japan, it was an overall win for Leroy Donald, an Am driver in the number 14 Ferrari. Took a win outright in the Suzuka International Racing course, I should say there. And then that last round, of course, just gone in Belgium at the Circuit Zolder, went to Ian Oates with Porsche. Looking at the balance of performance for today, before we get on to 20 minutes of qualifying and 90 minutes of racing further down the line, reveals a few bits of information, I should say. Law of Extremes definitely being the run of the day for today's balance of performance. 25 kilos shed off of Ferrari's number 2, no, not number 296, the Ferrari 296, the number 401 we see on your screen at the moment. Josh Harris will be seeing great benefit alongside several other Ferraris on today's grid. Porsche find themselves second best for that BOP, 20 kilos as opposed to Ferrari's 25. They're still going to see great benefit in today's race. Keep a close eye on Ian Oates, who was on a winning streak with Porsche in the Pro category. Looking further down, we've got BMW with 16 kilos shed off and Mercedes with 11. Aston Martin, their sister car, with 7 kilos and Bentley with a single kilo shed off. So looking into the positives now, McLaren with 8 kilos, a negligible difference when you consider Ford once again on the short end of the stick, 20 kilos for the 7th generation Ford Performance Mustang. Sadly, with no qualifying predictions, we're in the dark heading into round 6 as qualifying in about 5 minutes time. So let's get a look around the field to see a few of the new drivers on this grid. Among them, Tyler Vermack with the exclusive esports racing team. The number 25 Mustang, newest on the field, will be making a very sizable impression in today's round of the championship. Looking further around the field, we also see some familiar faces from outside of the championship, namely one I want to draw attention to here is currently sitting in the pit lane. That's the number 420 of Regent from over on VSR Phoenix, a prominent figure there. Now makes his way into MSC. This is going to be a very exciting time for the number 420. He's on his way out of the pit lane here for a final flourish of runs around Mount Panorama. This is a fantastic circuit, a fan favourite here on TRTN and a commentator favourite. This is easily in my top 5 best tracks on ACC, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to seeing how the folks at MSC choose to tackle things today. 90 minutes of racing coming up, so very key emphasis on strategy on a track as grueling and as unforgiving as Mount Panorama. This is going to be very, very exciting to see. See if we can catch on board with the driver about to start another flying lap. Donnie Linton is one that springs to mind. The number 24 BMW on his way currently down through the chase. Let's get on board here with Linton as we get an unofficial tour of this magnificent circuit. All 23 turns in all. We follow on board now with the number 24 of Donnie Linton up in the Pro category, making his way currently out of Murray's Corner at turn 23. Down that opening straight, and it's going to be bedlam heading down into this first corner here. Hell Corner came from the history of this track when it was originally a motorcycle racing circuit. There was a sizable tree stump up on the inside there. If you hit that heading through the apex of turn 1, well, guess where you're off to, hence the name of the corner. Up the mountain straight we go then as we ascend the mountain here on the outskirts of the town of Bathurst, New South Wales, as we make our way into Griffin's Bend at turn 2. And a lot of drivers have recounted that this is a very awkward section of the track. You can see for what reason that is. They're uphill, the weight's kind of against them as they travel around turn 2 into the cutting here at turn 3 and 4. And they need a razor sharp line to maximize momentum out through this section, as they're going to need it for the run up through turns 5 and 6 at the quarry corner. Now we're going to get on board with the dash cam view here, the number 24, to give you a real sense of perspective as we're out through turns 7 and 8, now through to turn 9 at Frog Hollow, then heading past what's called the Wall of Death on your right hand side here as we head into Solman and McPhillamy Park at turn 10, then down to Brock Skyline at turn 11, named after Peter Brock, one of the legends of Australian motorsports, competed in the Australian Touring Car Championships, most prominently seen driving a Holden Tirana A9X. We'll have to catch on with Linton later on. Sadly, he aborts that flying lap, so now we get on board here with Lee Evans as he makes his way through Solman and McPhillamy Park, past that Wall of Death. Just there on our left-hand side will be his right-hand side. He heads through turn 10 on his way down to Brock Skyline. You can see there, you get a little glimpse just down the hill as we head in through Skyline now at turns 11 and 12 into what's called the S's and the Dipper. We saw a couple years back, I think it was the 2015 Bathurst 1000, Chaz Mostert had a sizable slam against the walls here, and that's just the same story for these GT3s. One ping against either of those walls, with just how narrow that section of the track is, you will be ping-ponged between those walls until there is no vehicle left to drive out of it. Out through Forest Selby then and down what's called the Conrod Straight here, one of the longest sections of the track, a straightaway about 1.9 kilometers long. As we make our way down towards the chase, it's heavy momentum and heavy commitment to get an overtake in here as we head down through turns 21 and 22. Here at the chase, on board at the moment with Lee Evans. Making his way currently down towards Murray's Corner, turn 23 to wrap things out. We had that first part of the lap courtesy of Donnie Linton. Now we see Lee Evans to the line in the number 44 Porsche. Now, of course, mentioning back to that balance of performance package we saw earlier on today, and we'll bring that back up over the course of qualifying, which is short set to arrive. About 50 seconds left to go in free practice. So for Lee Evans, it is one more available lap for the 44 before the end of free practice today. It's looking very, very hopeful for Porsche. They're currently 5th. 203.835. Looking at where the timings are concerned, of course, this has been running for a little longer than we've been live for. This has actually been for about 30 minutes now. You joined us in the last 10 here in round 6. Currently, Tyler Vermack still leads with a 2 minutes, 0.87, pardon me, 0. Behind him then, Recap YT and the number 38 Ferrari. You can see for Ferrari, they have really got quite powerhouse control of the field, courtesy of that 25 kilo weight reduction on the 296 coming into today's round. Ford seemingly emerging against uncertain odds there, courtesy of Tyler Vermack, to put themselves over a second up the road. This can make for a very, very exciting qualifying session to follow very, very shortly. We're still on board with the 44 of Evans as he makes his way down through Brock Skyline for the second time here in Bathurst. He's currently 5th fastest, and it makes a all Porsche 3rd row at the end of free practice alongside Ian Oates, last round's race winner. Then further behind them, Henro Fori. Actually, as I just say that, behind him is Daniel Hatton, then Henro Fori on the 4th row, the 55 and the 32. Rudolf Slanieks in 9th place in the only Bentley in this championship at this time. The number 112 will be an interesting study there. Only a single kilo shed off of the Continental coming into today's round. But as we've seen in previous series over the course of coverage here in the last couple of weeks on TRTN, those Bentleys are not to be scoffed at. They are remarkably fast. We see joining the session at the last second, I believe that to be, yes, is Cardoso and the number 66 Mercedes. So without further ado, as we wait here for the 44 of Lee Evans, he'll be the last driver to the line before the start of qualifying. 20 minutes against the clock, so we're told here, before we get on to 90 minutes of racing here in New South Wales. As we can see there, green light is given. We can see it's a little hesitant for the start. Normally we see right out the barn gates performances by a lot of drivers there. A little degree of hesitance, but as we see making their way out of the pits is Jason Leatherby, Josh Harris and Donnie Linton to be our first 3 there. A swarm of red cars making their way out. Among them, you can see in the middle, that 401. I believe, isn't that the livery for the Emil Frey Racing team with the Verstappen.com stickers all over it there as he makes his way up the mountain straight, currently moving over to let Donnie Linton seemingly get around the outside. I'm not really sure. I think he is trying to hold short there, but neither of these two really wanting to move over one over the other. It's like watching two British people get into an elevator. Up through to the cuttings then, and this is going to be an exciting session, especially considering that just as much as the drivers here, we're heading into this one completely blind from data side perspective. We have nothing to give you right now from Simbot, who's normally our go-to for data on these races. So it's really a bit of a Wild West scenario here. Leatherby moves over, so now taking the lead of that charge into the first of our flying laps seems to be the 401 of Josh Harris. We were following on board with him a little earlier on today when we were discussing balance of performance. Whilst we wait there for the start of these flying laps, let's just get a quick look at the overall championship as far as that's concerned after round 5. Russell Nash continues to lead ahead of Ian Oates and Lee Evans in that top 3. Leroy Donald 4th overall and ahead of Josh Harris at the back of the top 5. Donnie Linton in 6th with Daniel Hatton in 7th. Robert Ogan in 8th and Henro Fori in 9th. Thomas Neymeyer in 10th with Jason Leatherby in 11th. Jonathan Barrett in 12th with Tom Van Lorca in 13th. Jonathan Curran in 14th. Connor Johnson in 15th. Antonio Angeletta in 16th. Jay Simpson 17th. Steph Hannes in 18th. Mr. Bernie in 19th, and Salvatore Borgetto round out that top 20. Then getting all the way to the last of our scoring drivers, Alfredo Pereira Vigo in 21st, Sean McNally in 22nd, David Horton in 23rd, and Edward Vickery in 24th to round out our scoring drivers here after round 5 of the championship here in MSC Clubsport GT3 Season 2. Down through turn 23 we go then for the start of qualifying today, taking onto the charge. We're on board with the 401 Ferrari of Josh Harris down towards turn 1. So already off to a raring start there. Got very, very wide over those curbs, using every available inch of the track at his disposal. He's not wasting any time to put himself as far up the order as he can. Currently is a power play in the championship. And looking where we're at in the championship, just to address some concerns some of you may have watching at home as to exactly how do we process this. As you say, we're in round 6, but here we are on what seems to be round 8, according to this calendar. Well, to give some context to that, rounds 1 and 2 at Hungaroring and Indianapolis were moved over to the end of the season due to early doors complications with G-Portal in getting those events up and running. So that first sort of wing of events was moved to the back of the season, so they'll be after Kyalami and the Nordschleife. That bumps everything down a peg. So rounds 1 and 2 are in fact, as it appears here, rounds 3 and 4, and so on and so forth. So we're in round 6 of the championship. You'll find the series next going over to the Grand Prix Circuit Kyalami, just outside of Johannesburg, South Africa, for round 7 of the championship. Still on board with Josh Harris. It was a very brisk start for him so far. He makes his way currently down through the S's and the Dipper as he makes his way now to Forest's Elbow. You could definitely make the argument coming into today's race, especially from what we've seen so far from both Ferrari and Ford, over whether or not it's acceleration or straight line speed that is going to be the be-all and end-all in terms of the engine setups on these cars coming into today's round of the championship. Now, of course, you are still talking outside of the engines alone on two fundamentally different vehicles. The Ferrari is a mid-engined rear drive. The Ford is a front-engined rear drive. They are designed in functionally completely distinct ways to one another. They have completely distinct handling styles down across the line then. 203.487 by Josh Harris. But where we really like to break things down here in discussing the cars is across the line. Donnie Linton now second behind him. Tyler Vermack now up to the fastest time at 201.435. Next to the line will be the number 420 of Regent. Also with Ferrari. Where we like to try and break things down here is in the discussion of the engine on these cars. As we've seen, it's been a really dramatic difference when discussing fights between Ford and Ferrari. That V6 versus the V8. You see that the Ford is a very straight line dominant car, whereas the Ferrari is actually not too shabby for acceleration. So with a track with equal respect opportunities to accelerate and get onto the top gear, this is going to be a very, very remarkable fight to see, especially looking at that front row now. Recap YT in the number 38 Ferrari now up to second fastest. He's off by just over half a second to the fastest time currently set in stone by the 25 Mustang of Tyler Vermack. Looking to make a serious impact on what appears to be his debut here to MSC. The number 25, which we've seen adorn Vermack on a number of occasions since his move to exclusive, but we've seen Vermack in many different shapes and forms over the course of several different seasons, including but not limited to VSR Phoenix, the Sunday League over on NLRL, the Console Endurance Series. I believe we saw a little bit of him last season. We've yet to see him here in Season 2. Now we get to see him here on MSC, and I'm sure I'm only skimming the surface for the amount of series that Tyler Vermack has made an appearance in, but what we do know about him is he's a very, very strong driver. In this current respect of his career on sim racing, he has done a lot to put himself up in that conversation. He was a runner-up in season 3 of the Sunday League, originally having crossed the checkered flag as its champion. It was a post-race ruling that took Season 3's champion away from him and gave it over to what is now one of his teammates, former teammates, I should say, at this time formerly with Velocity, and that would have been Melvin Milliston, another very reputable name here on TRTN. A bit of trouble though between Vermack. What was he doing there, attacking Donnie Linton down into the chase during a qualifying run? That surely is a little bit morally bankrupt. I mean, with 13 minutes still to play for, I understand that these laps are still, you just knew that was going to happen, didn't you? You just knew that was going to happen. Oh boy, it's going to be a long day, isn't it? Just to give you a reminder, as we quickly draw away the qualifying timer very quickly, we'll have that back up for you in a moment's time, but just to give you a little bit of an understanding as to where we last left the coverage of MSC Clubsport GT3 off at the last interval. We were back in Laguna Seca around 3 of the championship, just to get a look here. This was back in Monterey County, and this was a move between Leroy Donald and Daniel Hatton. It ultimately ended up spilling over into Tom Van Lorca. And yeah, okay, well, we're back into the thick of it, aren't we? It really don't get better than that. With about 13 minutes left to go in qualifying, currently find ourselves now already, before the race has even started, staring down the barrel of quite some recent controversy. I mean, looking at that incident there, realistically, what was Vermack doing attacking Linton during a qualifying session? That just simply defies sense. I understand if there's a slow car in front, but with 13 or so minutes, actually it was 14 minutes, when that incident occurred, still left to go in that session, surely you could have afforded the rights to just back off, pump the brakes a bit, and get ready for the next lap running. That was a bit desperate right off the bat, considering he's already got 3 attempts on the nearest car. Does Vermaat really afford the right to be making such unnecessary risks? I'm not 100% sure. It's not maybe the impression he was hoping to set. Leroy Donald just across the line there, took an overall win back in Japan and finds himself currently 5th fastest at the end of that first flying lap in the number 14 Ferrari, leading the charge right now for the AM drivers. Nearest to him, Rudolf Slaniaks in 7th place overall, 2nd in division in the 112 Bentley. See, though, really struggling to get onto the brakes down into Forest's elbow. That was nearly in at the wall. Would have been a bit ironic given the placement of those logos. Making his way down the Conrod straight. There's going to be words, if I had to imagine, in the paddock between Vermaat and Linton. Not many that I believe in good faith I can replicate on stream without a bit of a warning from my from my benefactors over on Twitch. Down through to the chase we go then in the 112. Seemingly right at home here in Bathurst. I mean, this is the home stomping ground of the V8 engine. You can see trouble for him there as he catches a little bit of grass on his way in to the chase. Ultimately, that spells an early end to his current flying lap. You can see moving to the left-hand side of the track, just letting by there. That was the Aston Martin of Jason Leatherby, the 86 down towards the line. Up in front of him was the 55 there. That was Daniel Hatton. Now up to 5th fastest with McLaren. Leatherby to the line. We'll see what he can do over the course of this last flying lap. Just gone across the line. Sadly, no improvement for the 86. Otherwise, could have been an invalid lap for Jason Leatherby. So, a little bit of plateauing early doors here in Bathurst. It is a notoriously difficult track to nail a good flying lap on, whether that be the imminent threat of hitting a wall over that middle sector, or whether or not it's the slightly more open-ended nature of that final sector. Just one incorrection on the brakes and you're into the grass, as we saw there, or even a little step over the line onto the grass, and you're going to be sending that car sideways down through the chase. I mean, that's exactly what we saw out of Laniaks just a moment ago. Looking back up as far as that front row is concerned, we can see that Recap is now back out on track in the number 38 Ferrari, still chasing down a pole position here off of Tyler Vermaat. I mean, it still remains very, very open-ended as to who can take pole position, but one driver we do see currently out on flying laps, it's Russell Nash, the man who took 3 wins in a row here in this season, then took a bit of a, as far as I was told, a bit of a hiatus over the course of round 5 after an incident in Japan at round 4 of the championship. But he's back now looking for an opportunity to compete against Tyler Vermaat. But you can see he was dipping his wheels on other grass. So I think I have a very rough idea as to what Mr. Nash is attempting to achieve here. On the looks of it, that is sandbagging to not give anyone the indication as to how fast his times are. But let's get on board with Russell Nash just to give you the indication, if he were to complete this on a valid run, what exactly would the times be for the 999. Down towards the line he goes then. Still leads the championship despite a hiatus. No round of competition in round 5 and missed out in round 4 DNF for the 999, but he's back in a competition at 203, 265 after that dip on the grass, intentional or otherwise. That would have put him right now right in sort of a slap bang middle position of that top 10, so not too shabby at all. Put him pretty much at a level pegging here with the 55 of Daniel Hatton. Across the line he goes. Is it to an improvement up ahead of the swarm of Ferraris now occupying that top 5? Sadly, doesn't appear to be the case this time around for Hatton. We can see that 25 kilo weight reduction admitted to Ferrari over the course of this round of the championship under balance of performance. What we can really see here, it is looking very, very strong indeed. Just something to quickly update about. I think we might have a slight issue regarding some of our telemetry. So for the foreseeable future, there'll be no further mentions of the balance of performance. So 8 minutes left to go in today's session. We see Ian Oates now up into the top 10. 6th place so far, not too far from a top 5 start. Needs, looking at it there, about 25 thousandths of a second. So very finite gaps we're seeing in and around that top 5 between Porsche and McLaren. You can see there, that's the first of our brushes with the wall of death. I have no doubt we'll be seeing that a handful of times over the course of the 90 minutes of racing set to follow. We've just seen as well, not long ago, was an extension over that fastest time of 2 minutes, 935 now for Tyler Vermack. Puts himself 8/10 and a single hundredth up the road from Recap in second place. Josh Harris currently third on his way down towards Murray's. Could there be yet an improvement for the 401 to put him up on that front row? Right now, he's in an all-Ferrari 234. And an all-Ferrari second row, for that matter, alongside Regent in the number 420 car. That's going to be a very lively top five we're looking at here in the next 7 or so minutes. Next to the line, though, at the moment, it's Ian Oates. And up to 5th place goes the number 6. Now, in order to get up onto that second row, he's going to need to be looking in the range of about 6/10 of a second over Regent to get up to 4th place. Speaking of, he actually chimes into our Twitch chat to say, if you had to say, how many laps do we get before a pile-up? Now, it is ambitious. It is ambitious to say anything double figures here in Bathurst, especially when you consider the opportunities for a pile-up. I mean, turn 1 right off the bat. It's a 90-degree left-hander, very sharp on the inside, very high raised curb over Hell Corner. Not too difficult to get yourself a little wrong over that section and create a huge incident behind you. At the same time, that can also happen on your way in through the cutting. If you get sideways through there, it's a very narrow section. You don't want to Austin Powers that GT3 car in through this area of the track, especially up now as we get through Quarry. I see quite relevantly times there as we're staying on board with Ian Oates with about 6 minutes left to go in this session. Skyline Hill, though, is absolutely where we're looking here. Brock Skyline, the run from turns 11 into the S's at turns 12, 13 and 14. Actually, as we see right now, because it is super easy, even with this runoff zone, for drivers to spill over into that kink to the right-hand side, heading down into the S's at turn 13. So plenty of opportunities. How many laps, though? It is tough to say. I want to say in an ideal world, we could get through the entire race without it. But if we're really taking bets here, I'm giving it about 5. About 5 laps, just given the fact that this is a dangerous track. The conditions aren't 100% favorable. Right now, it says that the track conditions are optimal, about 21 degrees, but even under those circumstances, the track is notoriously slippy in these GT3 cars. You're either understeering or oversteering, and it's a fine dance to try and maintain perfect balance of one's vehicle, even over the course of just flying laps here, as we've already seen over the course of qualifying today. Just under 5 minutes left to go, but we're back on board with Josh Harris. Making his way currently down through Griffin's Bend at turn 2. So we're trying to see here on the timetables. Actually, as a matter of fact, so this was the issue that we had with the balance of performance. I believe we had sourced it off of Pit Skill. As it turns out, I'm pretty sure they use a different provider for MSC, so you can now see what the balance of performance is concerned with here, and it is still showing, at least for Ferrari, it shows great benefit. 21 kilos as opposed to the 25 they were losing. Porsche still double figures, as we can see as well, looking here for McLaren and also namely for Ford. It is sizable ballast. It is sizable ballast they're dealing with. Maybe not to the same extent that we were showing on our BOP today, and that's our apologies. I think we just had a bit of a wire cross in getting that set up. But at the same time, it is still showing us a pretty clear and concise story. Ferrari and Porsche with primary benefit under BOP today. Ford definitely less so. We saw a bit of a clash there out through turns 5 and 6 as we head into Frog Hollow. This was with Lee Evans currently at the back of that top 10. 3.5 minutes left to go. You see here with Henro Fori, a driver we saw great promise out of earlier on this season, competing in the AM category. Number 32, second in division behind Leroy Donald. You can see just how fine the margins are there. Scrape here and a scrape there. It's a couple tenths of a second in difference over the course of a flying lap. Right now, he finds himself barely scraping above his personal best, bouncing in between negative and positive as he makes his way down past the wall of death, now out of turn 10 in towards turn 11 at Brock Skyline. Right in front of him there, you can see is Jason Leatherby as he heads down into the S's, and that suspension compression we see there over the front left nearly put him in the wall. Now you've got to consider this with 15 cars surrounding you over the course of a single lap. And that does go back into the argument as to how long exactly before we see a pile-up. Hopefully we don't see one at all, but I'd say the chances are still very, very likely. As a matter of fact, I'd throw it even closer, and I'd say not the first 5 laps, I'd say the first 3. It's when the pack is going to be at its closest, racing is going to be at its most desperate, because people want early results. People want to, even over the course of a 90-minute race, they want to see those results on paper because they can build from there. We see it all the time. Even in races that are 6 hours long, do we get incredibly tough starts out of drivers. And fun fact as well, we'll be heading back to the Mount Panorama circuit next Saturday for the coverage of the 4 hours of Bathurst on the NLRL Console Endurance Series, so we'll be able to see just that principle in play when we go racing for 4 hours. Right now though, here in MSC, we've got an hour and a half of racing coming up not too long from now, as we're only about 2 minutes left to go in qualifying. Still on board with Henro Foria's last lap sadly didn't prove to be an improvement over his personal best. He remains in 8th place. Looking at where those timing charts are concerned, Tyler Vermack continues to lead as the fastest time so far, though mysteriously we are still seeing that Russell Nash has yet to set a lap at all. So that kind of goes further into the argument that he has been sandbagging over the course of this session, and that is a bit of a recurring theme. He's been starting from the back of the grid pretty much every time we've seen him now here in MSC. It's a recurring thing, but he does find himself in a very dangerous spot, especially at Bathurst, because as mentioned, the chances for a pile-up here are higher than any other track in rotation. And if there is one, he's going to be seeing the worst end of it, because there's not going to be a way for him to get through in one piece. So with about a minute left to go, we'll catch on board with the next drivers down towards the line. The 44 just across a moment ago, that was Lee Evans. Following in his wake, another Porsche down towards the line. It's Ian Oates in the number 6, currently 2.5, just over 2.5, actually nearly to 2.6 seconds off of the fastest time as he crosses the line. Sadly, it's no improvement, but he's got one more in the tank, just as much so as the 44 up in front of him. 38 nearest to the line at the moment. We'll see if we can grab on board here with Recap. He's looking to be the challenger of that pole position today. Needs 783 thousandths of a second over Tyler Vermack, but with the 25 still seemingly out on track at this time, the chances for it to remain that way are very slim indeed. You can see hurling his car down Skyline Hill. This is brutal stuff from Tyler Vermack. Bear in mind, now admittedly we no longer have exact metrics on the, oh, you just saw under the timing belt there at the top of your screens. That was a huge slam with the wall at the S's for the number 25. So that's the end of his qualifying endeavours. It leaves Recap with a bare road in front of him to come and challenge for the fastest time today. Needs really heaven and earth to move under that Ferrari for a 783 thousandths of a second or more gap improvement. Josh Harris resides to the pit lane, so it seems content with that podium start. He does find himself in a very solid position, but that's taken away from him by Regent, now putting himself up to 3rd fastest. So it's still a Ferrari 234, but in a different order now. Regent across the line, satisfied to be on the front of that 2nd row. He's in a very good spot, starting right behind Tyler Vermack. Could find his way to sort of worm his way up the inside on Recap down through turn 1. Risky as all hell, but not impossible, as we've seen before. That's the 2nd row seemingly decided. Still a Ferrari all 2nd row. Regent now ahead of Harris. Oates still out on track at the moment. In front of him, the 44, fellow Porsche there, Lee Evans, on his way out through the chase, making his way down to Murray's. So from one Porsche comes another. Down through turn 23 goes the 44, the number 6 just over the hill, making his way down towards the line. So up to 6th there for Lee Evans. A great finish to his qualifying. Let's see what Oates can do right at the very end of quali here in round 6. Across the line, remains in 5th. So it's an all Porsche 3rd row so far, with one more driver still left to the line. The number 24, Donnie Linton, who got into a spot of bother with Tyler Vermack earlier on today, now finds his way back onto the track. Out of the chase, he goes down towards Murray's. Will he find an improvement past the back of the top 10 in the number 24 BMW? Making his way out through Murray's now. We've already seen sizable improvement from Evans. Will there be one for Linton across the line and up to 8th? Ahead of Leroy Donald and Henro Foria that now make the back of that top 10. Pole position then for Tyler Vermack overall, and then in divisions, it's pro still for Tyler Vermack and am for Leroy Donald. So a very chaotic qualifying session, a bit of a blunt reintroduction to things here on MSC, giving us a bit of some stark memories of times back in Laguna Seca, but let's see if history doesn't prove to repeat itself this time around here at the land down under, the heart of Australian motorsports here in Bathurst. Now, so I'm told we still have that 5-minute segment, so I have some juicy bit of news to discuss with you. Now, of course, looking into it here, we'll wait for the actual grid to form up. Just quickly discussing some of those results here. Do expect a very brisk start to that race from not only our front row there, but that second row and third row. Ultra competitive between first and sixth place. Also get a look towards the back of the field with Russell Nash. So we've got about 5 minutes here. Let's get underway with the discussion of the grid and then our little discussion at hand. Tyler Vermaak finds himself on pole position and up and ahead of Recap in second place. Regent in third with Josh Harris in fourth. And then an all-Porsche third row behind them. Fifth place for Ian Oates and sixth place for Lee Evans. Daniel Hatton in seventh place ahead of Donnie Linton in eighth. Leroy Donald in ninth, leading the charge for the AM drivers in the number 14 Ferrari and ahead of Henro Fori, his championship rival, in 10th place. Cardoso in 11th with Laney X in 12th, Leatherby 13th, Barrett 14th, and Russell Nash, after a hiatus in not Japan, I should say, sorry, in Belgium, returns to the grid, but starts once again, as per tradition, from the back of a 15-car grid. Now, a good while back on MSC, we last covered a sort of brief discussion, as it were, back in Laguna Seca. We touched more on it back in Imola, and this was on the discussion of Lancia's return to the World Rally Championship with its Ypsilon Rally 2. We then later used that point to suggest the theory that Subaru could one day be the next likely brand to return. In that time, we spoke quite heavily of the 2027 regs and Subaru Motorsport USA's current developments in the American Rally Association Championships. Well, to bring back up that discussion, that argument is certainly looking more and more compelling after Subaru's recent bombshell announcement at the 2025 Japan Mobility Show. One such car, currently named the Performance-B STI concept, shows Subaru potentially returning the WRX STI to its hatchback variation, last sighted in 2008, but also may hint at what Subaru's future plans are looking like with the WRX STI. Starting with its basics though, this model is set to feature a symmetrical all-wheel drive system, some variation of the Boxer 4 engine synonymous with Subaru in the modern day, and get this, a full manual transmission, a very rare sight amongst Japanese manufacturers in the modern day. Some suggest this is potentially Subaru looking to beat Toyota at their current game, with the size of this car eerily similar to that of the currently existing Toyota GR Corolla. Ironically, it was likely Subaru to be the inspiration behind Toyota's GR line of homologation special hatchbacks like the Corolla and, more poignantly, the GR Yaris. Now, compellingly, this move to a rigid hatchback-style body places Subaru within the category of vehicles most likely to be adapted into rally. The industry has been dominated by hatchbacks for the last couple of years. Originally, we argued that Subaru were perhaps waiting until 2027, whereby which sedans would be allowed to compete, and then they would introduce the currently existing WRX STI competing in the American Rally Association back into mainline competition. But now with this new model, this could be potentially showing that Subaru A, possesses the capacity to mass produce the model in line with homologation, and B, use it as the platform for a large-scale Rally 1 operation. The pieces over a potential return to Rally's most iconic label are falling swiftly into place. The question therein remains is, will Subaru act upon their ambition, or is the Performance-B STI concept a fleeting memory soon to slip between the cracks of time? Many concepts have come and gone, and rally fans now pray that this will not be one such occasion of a concept vanishing into the aether. About a minute and a half left to go. We'll leave you with that conversation. Things are looking yet again bright for Subaru. Well, looking into today's grid, things are looking bright for Tyler Vermaak. After early doors controversy with Donnie Linton, he does still find himself leading that charge heading down into turn one. We'll be getting on board with the 25 in a moment's time as we begin the run around the track for our formation lap, there in which we'll be able to identify some of those key areas to watch out for in the upcoming 90 minutes of racing here in Bathurst. Current weather conditions, as far as they're concerned, things are still looking nice and toasty here. 22 degrees on track, 19 ambient. That's cold by Australian standards, and optimum track conditions. No imminent threat right now in the next 30 minutes of any kind of rain. Seemingly no threat of rain for the rest of the session so far. As we get closer and closer to that 30-second warning, we find ourselves 15 cars in all on this grid. We'll wonder if anyone dare start from the pit lane. Eyes would potentially be on Russell Nash, but considering he made an active effort to avoid setting times today, I think 15th place is exactly where he wants to be. Looking onto this grid then, getting on board with the man now leading that charge, Tyler Vermaak in the number 25 Ford Mustang. Get on board in a moment's time. 30 seconds, now 20 before the start of formation lap today. Really quite a precarious top four indeed. Tyler Vermaak, Recap, Regent, and that is quite something there, because this is, I believe, now correct me if I'm wrong, this is Tyler Vermaak's first race. He is still relatively new to MSC. He has come here to make a solid impression, and where he may have found himself the enemy of a few drivers on this grid, he's hopefully not looking to make any more over the next 90 minutes of racing. Taking things away then on the start of the formation lap. Now this is your first key area coming up right here and now. That run down into turn one, we mentioned it before, it's a likely pile-up spot. It's going to be where action gets at its most brazen, at its most frayed, down through turn one, at the aptly named Hell Corner. Then that run uphill, this is going to be make or break for Vermaak. He knows he's got one of the best accelerating cars. Moreover, he's got one of the fastest cars currently in circulation on ACC, pound for pound. But that Ferrari is no slouch, and especially when tucked into the slipstream, it does still give Recap, Harris and Regent all ample opportunity to chip away at the Ford's confidence before we hit turns 2, 3 and 4 as we head up into that middle sector where cornering is going to be of utmost priority. And even in the aero wash generated by them, by the Ferraris and the Fords, they will still find more opportunity swinging in the direction of Ferrari. Get a close look, though, on that third row. Just looking further down the line, currently rolling in two abreast formation for a moment there. The twin Porsches, the number 6 and the number 44 of Lee Evans and Ian Oates. Now, there is hopeful signs here for Porsche. They've already shown a recent spur of success courtesy of the number 6 of Ian Oates, one out in round 5 of the championship in Belgium. So there are still great opportunities here, given that the Porsche, though a bit of a polarizing choice of vehicle, can handle and has shown to handle in historical terms quite nicely here in Bathurst. It is a challenging track for all cars, the Porsche no exemption, but if you can nail that Porsche down and find that balance we talked about from earlier, this car will flow around this track like mercury. Looking further down for other Porsches here, the number 32, Henro 4, he finds himself lining up on what is effectively the front row for AM cars, 9th and 10th there on the 5th row overall, lining up alongside Leroy Donald. Last round's AM race winner, also took a race outright in Japan. Very, very exciting times here in MSC. So getting back on board with Tyler Vermaak, we head now down into Skyline Hill. This is Brock Skyline coming up here, turn 11. Now, take note of the runoff to your left-hand side. There's nothing obstructing that path there, but there is a very small patch of that grass there, and that's going to catch some drivers out, especially if they're having quite a spot of bother. They touch even a slight bit of that grass, their car can possess the opportunity to get sideways very, very easily, and that's the last thing you want down through the S's and the dipper here. And as mentioned before, bringing up some context from a race actually having ran in real life, the 2015 Bathurst 1000, Chaz Mostert had a sizable wipeout in his Ford Falcon after one clip with the walls here at the S's and the dipper. All it takes is one, and it's a cascade effect from there on out. Our GT3s will be petrified of that coming to reality in today's race, so precision is of utmost priority for these drivers today. Heading down that Conrod straight. Now, this is the best opportunity for Ford. 1.9 kilometers here divide them from the run down towards the chase. And this is their best chance to build sizable chunks of time off of Ferrari. Once we get up into those top gears there, Ford on this grid right now is unparalleled. An absolute bullet, despite BOP nerfs to that 7th gen Mustang. In originally what was shown in our now incorrect BOP package, we've even gone in and checked, and Ford still find themselves very much so on that short end of the stick. In fact, I believe from reading it there, it was actually 20 kilos anyway for the 25. So that point still withstands. Despite being on the front of that grid, Tyler Vermaak is carrying quite the weight on his shoulders coming into round 6. Not only has he got high expectations for his own performance today, he's also got 20 kilos weighing down that Mustang against a fleet of lightweight Ferraris from second, third and fourth, I should say. Well, only a few more seconds now before the start of round 6 of the championship, making our way down towards turn 23. Not long now, and really there could be either one of the greatest starts we've ever seen here or one of the most brutal. Lining up on this grid, making their final preparations for the run into Mount Panorama here at round 6 of season 2 of the MSC GT3 Clubsport series on console. Making our way down towards the line here from Mount Panorama. 90 minutes against the clock without further ado here in New South Wales, Australia. 15 cars in all, 7 one side, 8 on the other, and we're green and racing here in Bathurst. A brilliant start by Regent there to get up and ahead of Recap right off the bat, but a brilliant start all to the same for Tyler Vermaak, who leads out through turn 1. In the background, things get getting side by side with the Porsches. Josh Harris now side by side with, I believe, looking at it there, that is Ian Oates in the number 6 on their way up the mountain straight. A brilliant start then by Vermaak, an even better start by Regent. Upper position right off the bat. Side by side in the background. Let's get on board here by the looks of things with Ian Oates and Josh Harris. He succeeds back into 5th place, looking on board with the number 6. He's right up onto the nose of his fellow Porsche there, the number 44, and then right behind them, hiding under that rear wing, that is Donnie Linton. In through the cuttings already, yellow flags are out for the number 14 car, now down the field. Already the first casualty on today's list. We'll try and get on board with them in a moment's time, but that's the first of your casualties. That was down through turn 2 into turn 3. We're now on board with the car in 6th place. Ian Oates currently chasing Josh Harris at the back of the top 5. It's actually, sorry, he's in 5th because the 14th place car has been mistakenly placed up in the lead of today's race. We'll see that soon. Update in through Skyline. You can see that's Regent and Recap and Harris, the 3 Ferraris in front of our 2 Porsches here on the 3rd row. Oates and Evans maintain their position. Donnie Linton on the charge in the number 24. There could be some action here between himself and Daniel Hatton further down the line. We see here from the perspective of Henro Forey making his way down through Forest's Elbow. He's got a front row ticket here to the fight between that BMW and the McLaren. Out through turn 18 we go, on to turn 19. In the background, trouble for Jason Leatherby, loses out to Russell Nash, who's already up to 10th after a single half lap. That is remarkable progress there. We were really expecting blood in the opening lap. This has been a remarkably clean start to things here in round 6. Things can still come apart here, though. Down through the chase, you can see the 2 Porsches up the road indicating that 3rd row. That's Evans and Oates, the 6 and the 44. Or the 44 and the 6 if we're talking from names. Down through turn 23, already sizable gap being built there between the leading pack. The 420 now quite distant from the 25. Down through turn 1 goes Tyler Vermaak at this time, leading after the first lap by a considerable chunk to Regent in 2nd. Looking over that rear view, you can see just off in the background the white and blue blur, that 999 McLaren. Russell Nash started 15th, has now carved his way up 5 positions, is very, very close now to being halfway up the field. We mistakenly made that claim, but no, he is still up quite a ways here, already to the top 10. Heading up the mountain straight, you can see the 2 Porsches settling into a rhythm with Donnie Linton in hot pursuit in that 24 BMW. That would be one to watch. Robert Ogan, though, seemingly in the pit lane there. I believe he's a late join. So that would have been 3 green Porsches on today's field. Ogan, a late signing there for round 6 of the championship. Looking here, this is Rudolph Laniak, the number 112. It was Leroy Donald who ran into a spot bother. He started towards the back of the top 10 alongside Henro Forey, who I believe now leads in the AM division. Looking here with what is going on currently for the battle of 2nd place. Recap chasing Regent. Behind him is Josh Harris. We'll see if we can get on board here with the leading of 3. Regent making his move over from VSR Phoenix, a respected name over there in the 420, now makes his way over to MSC and is making a very good start of things, much to the same as Tyler Vermaak in the 25, now leading the charge by nearly 5 seconds. The 420 had a blinder of a start to get himself up alongside and then through turn 1 on the 38 of Recap, who has now since fallen down to the back of the podium. Could fall another position with Josh Harris in pursuit down the Conrod Straight. Not too far off. There's the 2 green Porsches, Evans and Oates, 5th and 6th. Potentially some side-by-side action here. Recap now up to 2nd. Leaves Regent, relatively speaking, powerless. Out of turn 20, we go very nearly off on the left-hand side. Went Recap. You can see runs very, very deep into turns 21 and 22. So back up into 2nd place goes Regent. But as you can see, following right on his trails now, less so than a spectator, more so a competitor now for this spot 2nd place. That is Josh Harris. Struggling to get the words out there, but in towards turn 1. Harris now up a position on Recap, up to the podium positions in the 401. Let's stay on board with them here. The man in the middle in the fight of 3 Ferraris. Behind him, you can see the twin Porsches. Donnie Linton's not let go at all. Hatton not too far away. You can see the gap getting ever closer with the number 999 now firmly into a fight, currently down for 9th place between himself and Henro Forey. Into turn 2, we're still on board with Josh Harris. He's made 1 position up over the course of this race. Let's see if he can do another, making his way up towards the cuttings. Oh, it was a bit of a clip between himself and Regent there. That got dicey. Good recovery by both. That could have been disaster. Heading in through the cuttings now. Over the 3rd person view for the number 401. A rarely used camera angle, but I feel like this does a pretty good job to explain just how narrow the track is to get it from the view of the back of these cars here. In towards the wall of death, you can see but millimeters there between the 420 and the wall. Heading now out of turn 10 at McPhillamy Park, on board now with the dash cam view of the 401. Josh Harris on the run downhill through Brock's Skyline in towards the S's. So already a bloodied 5 minutes of racing here in Bathurst. Still plenty set to follow. One mandatory pit stop in all, with Robert Ogan such a late join here. He actually won't miss out on too much in terms of the race, but he did of course miss out on the entirety of qualifying. You can see the gap now between Recap and Harris is just completely opened up. There's 2.2 seconds where they started this lap less than a second apart from one another. It's become quite quickly a two-horse race here for second place. The twin Ferraris, the 420 and the 401, and up the inside goes Josh Harris. Does he make that move stick? Not at all. Running out of the chase onto the grass. Now he's got to keep this very, very careful here in order to not spin the car out. He rejoins, but right onto the nose of the 38. So where that fight for second place is lost, can he defend for third? Not at all. Now out to fourth. Bear in mind, looking to take some prime benefit of this is the 44 Lee Evans right onto the tail of these two Ferraris, scrapping for what is currently the last of those podium positions, looking at an imminent re-engagement of the position. Up the road, you can see trouble for the 420 off at turn 1. That's going to open things up. We could be back into the fight of second place. A limping 420 as Regent makes his way up the mountain straight. The 38 of Recap now up and alongside, up into second place, as now we see Josh Harris join the fight for second once more. Up towards turn 2 we go. Regent falls back into fourth place after that incident at turn 1. The 25 now double figures up the road. 12 seconds for Tyler Vermack, as we see now up into second place after a great exit of turn 2. Into the wall goes Josh Harris, pushed in by Recap, but somehow, despite that shoulder check, continues to lead. Get a look at that on the replay there. There was just no room to be found once those two got side by side. That was, I don't think, intentional, but you can see where that went wrong. Both of them pushing each other to the far side of the track, somehow coming out lighter than the other. The 401 maintained his stead in the fight of second place. Now looking back into it, he still holds on to second. Now fighting with Regent, who's found a second wind, as it were, to get back involved. The 38 having dropped miles down the road after that incident. That could be the end of the line early doors here for Recap. Currently seeming to have more issues, this time down at what looks to be Brock's Skyline. So even more compounded issues for the 38 Ferrari after his incident down at the cuttings. Very bizarre one indeed. Not that Josh Harris will be arguing with that one at all. He's up to second place. It's the best it's been so far for him here in Bathurst. But bear in mind, half a second behind him, Regent is not looking to go down without a very good fight today. He's already proven himself capable of second place, but one slip undid that progress right off the bat. I think for his sake, it's quite fortunate it only happened about 10 minutes in to today's race. 38 currently towards the back of the field then after that major incident. He's down in 14th place. We'll cut away here from Josh Harris as he starts to open the taps up on Regent. He's quickly denied the opportunity for a fight of second place off of any drivers right now. You can see Leroy Donald was our earliest casualty today. He's down in 15th place in the number 14 car. Looking up front, Tyler Vermack now clears 15 seconds to Josh Harris. So it looks like for the 25, this is looking to be an easy breezy drive here in Mount Panorama. Looking further down the line, we can see potentially a bit of action here, this time between Cordoso and Leatherby, the sort of sister cars, as it were, the Mercedes AMG V8 versus the Aston Martin V8. Bear in mind, despite the fact that AMG used the V8 from out of the AMG GT that you see on your screens at the moment to give to Aston Martin, they don't in fact use it in their own car. This actually uses an earlier iteration 6.3 litre naturally aspirated V8 engine from the Mercedes SLS. So they're sort of more spiritually sister cars to one another. Aston Martin is using an AMG V8 that would be used in the road model for this car here. So wrap your head around that one. Leatherby, though, having since fallen to 11th place, now looking to potentially get caught up by Rudolf Slanieks in the number 112 Bentley. So the battle of British machines here in New South Wales, Australia, set to kick off. We're 10 minutes into this race, though. Let's have a look at where things stand right now. Tyler Vermack leads with Josh Harris in second. Regent third with Lee Evans in fourth. Ian Oates now to the back of that top five. Donnie Linton in sixth with Russell Nash now up to seventh ahead of Henro Forey and Daniel Hatton in eighth and ninth. Cardoso in 10th. Leatherby, we're watching with right now, is looking to fend off 11th position ahead of Rudolf Slanieks in 12th place. Jonathan Barrett in 13th. Recap now down to 14th. And in the pit lane, Leroy Donald in 15th. Robert Ogun, a late join to the session, still remains in the pit lane in 16th place. What started as 15 cars, I am perplexed to see an extra join the field. Whether or not we'll see Robert Ogun out on track today is another question entirely, as he's found himself quite a ways down the order with very little opportunity to get up into the top 15 without someone DNFing. Looking here into the field, we actually do see a DNF, so that is exactly the prophecy we've seen fulfilled there for Robert Ogun. We're watching now with Russell Nash in a 3-car fight for the back of that top 5. Leading that 3-car fight is the number 6 of Ian Oates. You can see there in the bright green Porsche 911. Right behind him, that crimson red number 24 of Donnie Linton. Then the 999 of Russell Nash in pursuit, making his way up the mountain straight, looking to try things on here with Linton down towards turn 2. Up the inside on that BMW, still sticking the nose on the inside at turn 2 and gets that one nailed in. That was clinical precision from Russell Nash. Bear in mind, he started in 15th place, now up to 6th. Next in his iron sights is Ian Oates. So let's get on board with these 3 as our nearest fight currently on track. Actually watching with a defending point of view is the first to come up there, the number 6 Porsche of Ian Oates. You see the number 38, so that is in fact, I believe, to be Recap, given a stop-go 30-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So it's gone from bad to worse for the Ferrari after that incident with the 401 of Josh Harris. Now he finds himself with 30 seconds of a stop-go penalty to contend with after the pit stop he took to repair those damages. You can see imminent trouble. It was actually for the 999. Let's see if we can go and catch on board here. It was trouble for Russell Nash. See if we can go and get on board here. Nash now down to 9th and looks to be out of the session entirely. So very confusing as to what's happened there for Russell Nash. We were watching on board with the number 6. Didn't look to be any kind of contact from what we saw. But there, he's out of the race. So there goes Russell Nash. End of the road for the 999. Less than 15 minutes into the race. And already the death toll continues to rise here. Down to 14 cars in round 6 of the championship. Jason Leatherby still on board with here with the Aston Martin number 86. It is a rare sight indeed now in the modern day, that Aston Martin, and it is almost a pity. Thinking back to the times when, funnily enough, believe it or not, I used to play ACC and compete in ACC GT3 series. I competed here in Bathurst in an Aston Martin V8 Vantage, and I can quite first-hand relate to the issues that Leatherby possibly is having with that V8 Vantage. It is an absolute tank in through the middle sector, but it is very, very predictable on those curbs. So especially down through the that second and final sector, you don't feel so afraid to get your elbows out through that area. Especially down through Brock Skyline, it does feel actually quite remarkably well put together. It sort of feels like driving a tank downhill. We see here the fight of 10th place, Leatherby v Laniacs, Battle of Britain as it were. Aston Martin versus Bentley. 4-litre AMG twin turbo V8 versus 5.4-litre turbocharged M Sport V8. Not 5.4, sorry, 4.0. If we're talking 5.4s, now let's get onto that subject. Bit of a Freudian slip, but if we're talking 5.4s, this is it. 5.4-litre naturally aspirated, co-engineered Ford Performance M Sport V8 engine. 7th generation Ford Mustang. Newest kid on the block, as it were, for the GT3s here on ACC, and it has taken competition by storm. Now, I've yet to see a championship where Ford has outright dominated, and I would like to say that is still well within the confines for me to say, as I feel like at this time we've been pretty well traveled here on TRTN. Could we be seeing the case? And now I've been seeing a few cases rise up. Most recently, I'd say, is the XCL Pro Series is definitely one such occasion. The Ford has started to dominate there. Are we starting to see the same from the likes of Tyler Vermack? Now, we've seen him in plenty cars before. All manner of vehicles. Well over the range of, I think it's about 6, maybe 7 cars now we've seen him drive. The Ford being his most recent decision. He went actually back to Ford after a brief stint back in Season 2 of the NLRL Sunday League. Vermack's choice to go over to Ford, it was a comfortable decision for the South African talent. He finds himself head and shoulders up this field right now, 21 seconds up the road. Yeah, we saw that there, Regent, in chat. But, oh, hang on just a moment. We'll have to catch up with you in a moment's time. Yellow flags out through the chase for the 1-1-2. That, I believe, is Rudolph's Laniacs and the Bentley. So let's see if we can go and catch on board with him here to see what is the state of affairs for Laniacs. So there's some trouble out through turns 21 and 22. Doesn't appear to be anything in the way of damage, but it definitely could be indicative of a spin. As we've seen as well out of that Bentley earlier on today, it is very, very accident prone down through the chase. It's a very high commitment corner, and one single blade of grass can upset the balance on, despite its enormous size, a relatively featherweight Bentley. Recaps back into the pit lane. It has definitely been a race to forget there for the number 38. A very promising qualifying session undone in less than a quarter of an hour. You see here with Josh Harris, currently in 6th place. We do have another yellow flag, this time for the 55. And yes, you can see there, that's Daniel Hatton in serious trouble down through Brock's Skyline. So Cardoso gets up by, then Leatherby. You can see, can he coax that McLaren back into life here? Are we about to see another DNF here in Bathurst? It has been an absolute slaughterhouse, as it were, for these GT3s today. Unbelievable stuff. Fortunately, looks like Hatton could get the car back up and running. Oh, never mind. He's into the wall again. Yeah, that's looking rough for McLaren. That is 2 cars already under the gavel in today's race. We saw it in this very same section out of the 999 of Russell Nash. Now we see it out of Daniel Hatton. It's not looking good for McLaren. I tell you that much. It is really, really not looking good for McLaren. On board now with the 66 of Cardoso with Mercedes, the only Merc in this race, as it turns out. Making his way down through to Murray's. And somehow, despite his incident, the 55 of Daniel Hatton is still not in the pit lane, so it seems. He is making his way currently down the Conrod Straight, but it's a bit of a graphic sight here, so do bear that in mind. That is not looking grand. How has he been able to get that car back up and running is a miracle. Absolute miracle. He'll be in the pit lane for quite some time then. Looking further up into the field, we're seeing where our battles are now starting to re-emerge here. Ian Oates versus Donnie Linton could be one up for discussion. 4th place up for grabs. As we can see even further up the road, Evans v Regent. Currently in the ballpark, 1.7 seconds. That could drop away at a moment's notice. We've already seen the Ferrari's been a little bit flaky over the course of today's race, especially for Regent. We saw that incident earlier on down through turn 1. That still leaves the opportunities on the table for the 44 to come on through. We've seen a very, very solid performance so far from Lee Evans. Moreover, we've also seen a very solid performance out of Ian Oates. These 2 Porsches, despite being some of the most dangerous cars on ACC, they're flowing. And I did make that assertion not long ago. If you can nail the car setup here in Bathurst, these Porsches will flow around the track like Mercury. And we're seeing it pretty headstrong here between the 44 and the 6. Saw a little bit more trouble from the number 14 car, this time out through the chase. Momentary yellow flags, but not enough to raise it on our systems here. On their way down the Conrod Straight, we see 3 cars in all. Linton, Oates and Harris, all in contention for 4th place. Now, these are 3 very, very exciting drivers to catch in the middle of a fight. We've had no shortage of good fights, especially when you consider 2 of those drivers in the mix. And this is no discredit to Ian Oates, but when you have Linton and Harris in the mix, it's always a good time here. And with Oates, this is just extra seasoning in what has already been a gourmet level fight on the table. Heading in through Murray's, later the 2 on Apex is there, does leave Donnie Linton while still in the lead with a withering gap to both the Porsche and the Ferrari, twin barrels of such, heading down into turn 1, can't find his way to the inside, so Ian Oates slots back in behind the number 24, big step out there, out through turn 1, you see emerging from the pit lane, Henro Fori and Recap, 13th and 10th. We'll stay on board though with the man in the middle, the number 44 Porsche. Oh, my mistake there. The number 44 is further up the road. That's Lee Evans. The number 6 Porsche. I know they changed the wheels on them there, but I can still never tell those 2 Porsches apart. Out through turn 2. Though we will probably, by the looks of that gap right now, be on the discussion of the 44 a little later on. Up the road, more contact here at the cuttings. This time again for the 401. Not the first time he's been checked into the walls there in that 401. You can actually see the 38 emerged from behind him there. It was part of that incident earlier on. And bear in mind, we're no more than 30 minutes into this. We're barely 20 minutes in, as we're just ticking down to that point now. Looking in for our fight of fourth, half a second between Donnie Linton and Ian Oates. Despite that knock at the cuttings, the 401 is gaining time, 1.3 seconds and closing to the number 6. So Ian Oates can't breathe a sigh of relief just yet, though Donnie Linton is right in front of him. The road has been laid bare. You can see he's got his own troubles to deal with. First and foremost is the stability on that Porsche. Something clearly awry in the number 6. You can see the back end hanging a little bit low out of turn 18. Doesn't look like anything too severe at this time. Of course, there was that hit earlier on, but I think looking at it realistically, that wouldn't have been enough to do any kind of serious damage on the Porsche. Right now, he's going to start having to back off on the idea of a fourth place fight. He's going to start looking at his defensive fight for fifth, because here comes the 401 of Josh Harris. We've seen already he's a very capable fighter in his own respect. Let's see what he can do when the cards are stacked against him. Extra damage on that 401 Ferrari. Not enough to bring him into the pits, as we saw earlier out of Daniel Hatton. But more than enough to have a pronounced effect on how that 296 is going to be taking on Bathurst in the next couple of laps here. Of course, with a single mandatory pit stop on the table, there is still quite a strategic element to play for. Normally, we'd see races of this length be separated up into 2 mandatory pit stops, where you could definitely make the argument that it's a 30-minute stint before one comes into the pits, and then they can do it all over again, giving them what is functionally, looking at it there, about 4 stints in all. We see side by side here, a seceding position. Ian Oates looking at no chance of a fight here. He's not particularly interested in making any enemies. We can also see the yellow flags came out again for Daniel Hatton, this time out of turn 18. Still on board with Oates, seceding the position to Harris. Now, is there any kind of tactical advantage to be gained from this? You can see right now he's able to follow in a nice hefty heap of slipstream up through turns 5 and 6 on the exit of Quarry in towards Frog Hollow. It's not going to be doing him many favors, though. You can see the hesitance in the number 6 now, as he's got aero wash over the nose of his Porsche, heading down towards Skyline. See, following on his trails there, the number 38 down in 13th place. That's Recap, the man who started from the front row today, already having a bit of a mare here in Bathurst. It's going to happen to someone, but he's still in the fight. Looking further up the road, this was the car we had him confused for, the number 44 of Lee Evans. Now, previously, there could have been that discussion for a fight between himself and Regent. Currently, 2.2 seconds, the gap between himself and the number 420. No current indication as to when either of them will be taking the run into the pit lane. Now, feasibly, we could expect to see that at about, I'd say, the 45-minute mark or thereabouts. Give it, say, 5 minutes either side of it to give those drivers the opportunity for a 60-40 or a 40-60 here on today's race, because it is a one-stop strategy. The drivers currently in the pit lane are only doing so on emergency circumstances. Very few have actually done this in elements of strategy. This has all been quite reactionary, especially what we've seen most recently for the 55 of Daniel Hatton into the pit lane at the moment. So looking at where things stand, we're 30 minutes, or nearly 30 minutes, I should say. We're 24 minutes into this race right now. Tyler Vermack has disappeared from sight up road. And double figures in the lead of this race. He has gone uncontested from the word go. He has been flying around Mount Panorama in that 25 Mustang. Regent up in a second place. He's leveraged a really good start and a good bit of recovery there to keep himself well within the fight inside of that top 5. Currently relishes in a front row position at this time, albeit over half a minute away from the leading car. Lee Evans in third place, still looking for a chance here to finish on the front row. He's looking at very solid points right now. He's up and ahead of Donnie Linton in fourth place. He's had a great fight so far as well. Currently up and ahead of Josh Harris, recently having got past Ian Oates. Looking further down the order here, up in the pro category, the number 66 of Antonio Cardoso, with Mercedes currently in 7th place, up and ahead of Jason Leatherby, who leads right now in the AM division. So after very controversial turns of events for quite a few of the heavy hitters in AM, I mean, namely looking there for Henro Fori and Leroy Donald, Jason Leatherby leads ahead of Rudolf Slanieks in 9th place. Now, there were a few hiccups here and there for the 112 Bentley over the course of the first 25 minutes of racing, but he seems to have settled into a bit more of a stable rhythm now in the only Bentley in this championship. Enro Fori in 10th place, third, I should say, sorry, in division of a currently 4 AM driver race. at the back of the Anfield, the man who leads the Am Championship, the number 14 of Leroy Donald. It's not been the best of days for the number 14 Ferrari right now. He finds himself 11th overall, 4th in division, and ahead of Daniel Hatton in 12th place. Recap in 13th. Robert Ogan still in the pit lane, seemingly a no-show for this race, but he's here in spirit, supporting the 44 and the 6, the cars of which he shares striking resemblance to there. That trifecta of green Porsches here in MSC. Leading those green Porsches then is Lee Evans. We're on board with now once more. At the last recorded interval, 2.033 seconds between himself and Regent. So the chances for these two to fight in the next 15 or so minutes before that potential to run into the pit lane still remains quite likely, especially given the fact that things have been a little shaky up until quite recently for Regent. So I think the moment he settles into a nice rhythm is where we could definitely see that fight for second start to dissipate in favour of Regent over Evans. We see there that that wasn't much of an assist for the Porsche. A bit of deep running there in through turns 3 and 4 at the cutting. So still a long road to the checkered flag. But right now it's being paved on pretty solid intentions for the 420. Looking at where the nearest fights could be concerned, you'd be looking here for the battle of 4th place. Currently leading that charge, the 24 on your screens, that bright crimson red BMW of Donnie Linton. The American leads the charge up ahead of Harris and Oates, still in pursuit. Those two separated by just a little under 2 seconds from each other. And see, physically that gap is getting a lot closer, so we're going to try and catch on board here with Donnie Linton just to see firsthand what is going on between these two. On board with the 24, making his way out of Forrest's elbow. Bit of a kick on the rear end there to give himself the extra rotation. He has snipped a little bit of his momentum. Not that I think he needs it. The BMW, of course, one of the fastest cars in ACC. We still have yet to come to conclusions onto exactly what the fastest car in ACC is. I'm delighted to say that we'll probably be getting in touch with a few drivers that we're in close contact with to start that official discussion. Sort of an ACC land speed record test, as it were. We do thoroughly look forward to whenever that kicks off, but we do have quite a lot of drivers willing to pitch in on that. And if you are potentially interested in pitching into the TRTN speed test, then do let us know. In through turn 23 at Murray's, still watching here with Donnie Linton in the start of that battle for 4th place. A defensive fight for the BMW. As you can see over the course of that last lap, nearly a whole second faster was Josh Harris behind him in the 401 Ferrari. Out through turn 1 we go. You can see up the road would have been the suggestion of that fight for second place. Regent and Lee Evans, 2nd and 3rd. Behind them, you can see as well as Ian Oates now up and against the 38 of Recap on a completely separate length of the race. Up the mountain straight we go then to turn 2. You can see already having opened the gap up to a more comfortable distance into the more technical areas of Bathurst is Donnie Linton's BMW. Just watching from inside the car gives you a pretty solid indication just to how tight this area of the track is. That's no wonder we've seen so many issues here at the cuttings and in towards Quarry up into Frog Hollow. It is super tight. One slight incorrection and you're in at the wall. And as we mentioned as well down at the S's, it's all to the same here. One touch with the wall and you're getting ping-ponged around the track until you're either in the gravel or on your roof. They're heading down through Brock Skyline. Let's just get a view on board here with Donnie Linton. You can almost feel it in the car almost when you're driving on this track. You can feel it go light as you mount the crest. If you go in a little too quickly, there is a very likely chance the back end can fully lift, especially if you get onto the brakes just a little too late. Out through turn 18 though, that was easy and breezy for Donnie Linton. He made that one look unfathomably easy. Effortless moves there for the 24. I think that's one of the best things about Bathurst as well for these drivers. Once they get into a certain rhythm like that, that becomes an unconscious effort. They're moving purely on instinct. And that's really when you get to see driving at its most raw and its most visceral. In towards the chase we go then, turns 20, 21 and 22. Donnie Linton now 0.8 of a second up the road from Josh Harris. So you can see that the Ferrari's maneuverability is playing very nicely into the hands of the 401. But as we get onto the straightaways here, down towards Murray's, back into the run, down the opening straight, in towards turn 1 we go, and then back up the mountain straight. It's all BMW's territory to claim. In that last lap, the gap's a lot closer there, only about 2 tenths in difference. Still to, actually this time to benefit of Linton, benefiting from that really solid run of the middle sector. Bear in mind, the closer the 401 gets, the harder things are going to become, because he's going to have to deal more and more with that vacuum created by that less dense air already being punched out of the way by Donnie Linton's BMW. This is the one of the major conundrums these drivers face when chasing one another. Now, those of you still relatively new to the concept, when you're punching a sizable hole in the air and you're generating that slipstream, this is what allows other drivers to catch up to you. It's because the air rushing over their car is rushing out of the way of yours. So you stay in this pocket generated by the car up in front. The air is way less dense, still enough to, of course, keep the engine up and running. They're not creating a total vacuum. That would be catastrophic. But they create enough of this gap in less dense air, you can slip into that area and gain a couple extra miles an hour. But this comes with its own set of challenges. Because there's less air rushing over your car, there's less air pushing down on the aerodynamics, meaning the car just can't handle the same. In through the S's and the dipper. You see this in practice here, because with less air over the nose, that Ferrari is struggling to keep pace with the BMW of Donnie Linton. In through turn 18 we go. You can see Lee Evans up the road there. Clean air over the nose of his car. Clean air over the nose of Donnie Linton's car. Very much so is not the case right now for Josh Harris in the 401. Following in the slipstream still down towards Murray's. Not close enough for a suggestion up the inside, but Josh Harris is gaining more and more confidence in the wake of that BMW. So the chances for a fight of fourth place still very much so on the table here. Whether or not we'll see it towards the end of this lap or next is another question entirely. You can see the momentary suggestion from Harris there, a potential move up the inside. Both of these drivers having a little trouble there over the curbs on their right hand on the exit of turn 1 at Hell Corner. Cutting away from these two for just a moment here, having a look around the field just to see where the nearest fights are coming from. Jason Leatherby versus Rudolph's Laniacs, the battle of the British machines. Aston Martin and Bentley in contention of 8th place down in the AM category. Keep an eye on these two. This is actually for the battle of the AM lead between the 86 and the 112. So very exciting stuff here from Leatherby and Laniacs. Getting a look on the overall charts as we now surpass that 30-minute mark proper. Still much to be considered in the fight of Linton v Harris. We also see Laniacs v Leatherby. Yellow flags are out for the number 14 car back into the pit lane. That was Leroy Donald. Could that be the end of his time here in Bathurst? We're back into green flags for our drivers, still out on track, but there seemed to have been a major incident down at the S's for the 14 Ferrari. See there, just tucked up in front of the 96 Porsche. That's Leroy Donald in the pit lane. Could that be the end of his time here in Bathurst after another incident forces him further down the line? He was previously, I believe, in 11th place. You can see into the pit lane joining us there for what looks to be a 40-60 on his strategy. That is Tyler Vermack, the leading 25 Mustang. That does leave the position bare here for Regent to come and take hold of the race lead. He finds himself currently 5.5 seconds now up the road from Lee Evans's Porsche. Does he come into the pit lanes to follow the 25? No, as you can see, the 420 stays out to become the new race leader here at round 6 of the championship after about 34 minutes of racing here in Bathurst. For how long will this stand then? Strategy still in favour of the 25. I almost said Leroy Donald, but no, he is in the pit lane and joining him potentially soon. Another yellow flag is out. This time it's for Rudolph's Laniacs down at Skyline Hill. So just quickly cut away from the discussion of the now leading 420 of Regent here in round 6 of the championship. We quickly cut on to what would have been a fight for 8th against Jason Leatherby has now come apart very quickly for Rudolph's Laniacs. Fortunately, he's back up and running. Looks to be minimal damages in the face of it there. That could have been a lot worse, and I'm sure he knows it. Out through turn 2, we are seeing some serious suggestion at some side-by-side action now. This time on board with Josh Harris. He chases Donnie Linton. Now, we've seen these two clash before, and it was spectacular when they did. There is nothing to say that this kind of magic cannot happen again here in the land down under. Heading up through turn 6. In towards Frog Hollow now on the exit of Quarry. In towards Solman. You can see there the wall of death, and it clashes with the 401, so he's caught victim by the wall of death. Now out through McPhillamy Park in towards Skyline Hill. Still on board with Josh Harris down through the S's. You can see where Donnie Linton has been able to carve out such a sizable gap. You saw one tap put him into the wall there against the Shannon's boards and very nearly put it in again against the Bentley signs on the inside of turn 18. Super fine stuff there. It was only one tiny hit against the wall. It kind of goes to show just how hard he was pushing the limits there on that 24. Right now, Josh Harris in a very good chance here of taking third place, what would be provisionally fourth off of Donnie Linton. A little touch over the left-hand side on the grass, but up the inside through the chase he goes. Now, can he hold on to this by the time he gets to Murray's? Will either of them think about seceding to the pit lane? It was already been a brilliant fight so far between the pair, looking potentially at the inside and then backs out of it. Josh Harris still holds on to third right now, but a better exit out of Donnie Linton does put this up in serious question as we head towards turn 1. The BMW right up the back end of the 401 Ferrari. Does he think about it? A little tap between the pair as they make their way around Hell Corner, seceding the position to try things again. That's good sportsmanship from Linton. Quickly owns up to the situation at hand. Harris still in that fight for third place, leads that two-car battle now up the mountain straight. It could be second time on the trot here for Donnie Linton, but no, backs out of it before we hit turn 2. Playing things a little bit closer to the chest after that incident at turn 1. Donnie Linton's not looking to try and make enemies of Josh Harris at this time. Up through the cuttings we go. A very seriously troublesome area of the track. Now, we mentioned it before that this could be a likely spot for a pile-up. Now, while we haven't seen strictly pile-ups, we have seen quite a few incidents. Out through Quarry we go. You can see how close they're willing to get to the wall. Now, that's actually not the closest we've seen it so far, but it's a pretty good average. Out through Solomon, then to McPhillamy. Now Josh Harris having put 0.7 of a second over Donnie Linton. Now this is an area where we've seen great improvements so far from Linton, save for that last lap where he had a little scrub against the wall through the S's and the dipper. Let's see now with clean air over the nose of that 401 Ferrari what Josh Harris can do in the 296. Down through turn 18 we go. You can see just how quickly those corners fall in line after turn 11. Now on the exit of turn 18 in towards turn 19. 3 seconds up the road and a gap quickly dropping now. Is that to Lee Evans in the Porsche? Josh Harris does not fail to disappoint. It's been quite some time since we've been here on MSC. And he seems to be an almost universal presence there for Harris and Linton to be getting into a good scrap. We're not disappointed here in Bathurst. Out through turn 21, now into 22. Neither of these two thinking for a run into the pit lane, so this is a very early doors strategy by Tyler Vermack, but it's all in good reason. Because he's getting into the pit lane early, he's avoiding a lot of the conflict that's going to be happening, especially in the next 7 or so minutes. When a lot of drivers are hurrying towards the pit lane, they're going to be pushing each other around the track to get into that spot. This is where we're going to see a huge swarm of cars exit the pit at the same time. This has also given the 25 a great opportunity to have even more clean air in his lungs before he gets back into another fight for position. With anyone looking for a larger scale overcut, one such example could include the 420 currently leading this race. The 25, though, has got things nipped in the bud so far. There's nothing to say that Tyler Vermack can't imminently return to the lead of this race. Right now, strategically, it's looking to be the case. But it was quite an interesting call, the earliest of its kind for a deliberate run into the pit lane, not including emergency repairs. That was for the number 25 of Tyler Vermack. Still watching here with the 401 versus the 24, Donnie Linton and Josh Harris. We're watching on board with a leading, now formerly trailing of 2. After that move in through turns 21 and 22 a few laps ago. That was very solid by Harris. A great switchback by Linton. You see now scrubs the wall at Solomon. Now through McPhillamy. They had a great little battle over the course of the last 3 laps. Brilliant stuff from those two. They're down through the S's, and you can see that something is not inherently correct with that 24. Something ain't right. Maybe that was possibly to do with that sizable knock he had out of Solomon past the wall of death. But bear in mind, so too is the 401, and seemingly a less dramatic effect for him. But you can see something has quite seriously been damaged on the 24 of Donnie Linton. He's now down 1.6 seconds. He was at his closest, still within that second margin. He now trails even closer to being 2 seconds away from Josh Harris, who seemingly has found quite a bit of second wind here in the 401. We've seen quite a few incidents for him today, but he finds himself in a very comfy podium position right now. And with the chances currently still at hand here, with a rapidly approaching 44 up in front of him, the chances to fight for second place are on the table for Harris. here in Bathurst. In front of him, that's Jason Leatherby, currently leading the AM division in the number 86 Aston Martin on his way down towards turn 1. He's going to succeed there for the 401 to get up and around him at Hell Corner. He'll have to do the same in a moment's time for the approaching number 24 of Donnie Linton up the mountain straight. This has been quite an interesting race so far. Quite a lot of controversy from the word go over the course of quali, now over the course of the race. We'll leave you on board here with Josh Harris for a moment's time. We'll be back in just a second. Now 48 minutes left to go. We were still on board for the longest time here with Josh Harris, and he makes his way currently down through Murray's. We'll catch on with him in a little while. Having a look around the track here, we see Tyler Vermaak. Despite having taken that pit stop, it didn't count as his mandatory pit stop, so still the prerequisites left rather ambiguous. The 25 still with one pit stop to serve seemingly has undone his progress at the front of the pack. Now this is only very recent news to us. Of course, he took that pit stop quite early on in the way of things. He's currently up and ahead of Antonio Cardoso in the number 66 Mercedes, but this is a very, very strange situation for the 25. Now he's heads and shoulders further ahead in terms of pace than quite a lot of the grid right now. He went uncontested. He was over half a minute up the road by the time he came into the pit lane. So pray tell, what exactly went wrong for Vermaak in the pit lane? Now this is not the first time we've seen troubles in the pit lane for Tyler Vermaak. Now this is almost his Achilles heel, and that's what it was. The pit window was not open. This is completely new information to us. The pit window was not open at the time, so Vermaak went in too early. So that was a bit of a deus ex machina there from Assetto Corsa Competizione, just introducing to us firsthand what exactly went wrong, and it's almost revealed in the sky, as it were there. The 25, though, has made a sort of cardinal error. Now he finds himself currently out of that fight for the race lead. Now this could fall quite firmly into the hands of Regent. I don't think he realizes just yet that the pit lane run took by Vermaak did not count towards his mandatory pit stop. It was not within the pit window, of which, funnily enough, we didn't know there was one coming into this race. So for Regent, the opportunity is there to come into the pit lane now that it has opened. Currently closes in about 4 minutes' time. So it's really a now or never situation with laps currently hooking in and around 2 minutes per. It's definitely a now or never situation for a lot of people, with the pit lane set to close in about 3 minutes 40 seconds. Having a look as to who's entering the pit lane, you can see Josh Harris is in, Donnie Linton is in, Rudolf Slanieks was in a little earlier when the pit lane first opened. And currently, that is the sum of things from the pit lane at this time. Having a look here, we can see side by side between Ian Oates and Henro Fori on two separate lengths of the race. Behind them appears to be Jason Leatherby's Aston Martin. And Vermaak is in now to take what is a officially recognised pit lane run. 45 minutes left to go. We're nearly at the halfway mark of this race. We'll be getting confirmation of that in a moment's time. Rudolph's Laniax has let go from the pit lane. No issues there for the 112 Bentley. He's released with no problems. Now in 8th place. That could actually be further down, as we did see not long ago Henry Fourie and Jason Leatherby. So yeah, to the back of the top 10. So it seems Daniel Hatton's into the pit lane right now to serve his mandatory pit stop. We've just seen the all clear given for Josh Harris and Donnie Linton. There goes the 401. Rockets out of the pit lane there, following on his trails. There's the 24.
Still a long way to go.
So this is going to get dicey now, folks. We were not previously aware of that pit lane window. Of course, we had seen plenty of drivers into the pit lane before, but those are on emergency damages. I mean, look at such the case of the 55 of Daniel Hatton. He's been in and out of the pit lane quite a few times today. Now into the pit lane region in the number 420 Ferrari. And following him in as well, Lee Evans in the number 44. So we're starting to see that top 4 make their considerations. Will we see the likes out of the number 6 of Ian Oates potentially next into the pit lane there? You can see Arxet in on the left-hand side. Into the pit lane he goes, and following in his wake there appears to be the number 86 Aston Martin. Yes, that is Jason Leatherby. Currently with Henry Fourie staying out up the road. This could be for the deciding fight here of the lead of the AM category. Will it go in favour of Fourie, which we have seen earlier on this season has taken AM victories in the 32 Porsche? Or will we see it once more out of Jason Leatherby? Moreover, there's the consideration here. Rudolph's Laniax. Let's not count the Bentley out of this fight strategically. He's got the pair of them pitched. Now as he gets up past Leatherby on the pit straight, Henry Fourie, the only other AM driver to stand in his way here. Laniax could be taking the AM category win with Bentley. Looking for where things stand right now for Tyler Vermack. He's 7th right now with 3 cars still from the pit lane. Evans, Oates and Cardoso now. Antonio Cardoso, the most recent of 3 to join the pit lane alongside the 2 Porsches, the 44 and the 6. Vermack could gain a few positions here as he's down through the Murrays. We've seen already gains in positions up to 2nd and 3rd for Harris and Linton. Vermack could be up to 4th by the end of this lap. Across the line he goes, and with those 3 having just been cleared for exit, we see their movement already as the number 6 passes the number 44 in the pit lane. You can see sliding his way out, and now alongside Tyler Vermack is the number, looking here, the 86 of Jason Leatherby, who sadly, after taking that run through the pits, did not count towards his mandatory pit stop.
Pit window is now closed.
And now that is the window slammed shut on Leatherby and Fourie. With recap, the only other driver yet to have served a mandatory pit stop, it leaves all 3 of them in a very uncomfortable spot right now. 42 minutes left to go. Now we're on board with Regent, leading this race by 10.5 seconds. Now, he said he wasn't coming into this championship with anything in the way of collecting silverware. He was not looking to fight. He was not looking to compete for the championship. He didn't have any of those ambitions in mind. He was coming in his words, to get the mountain experience. Well, he's definitely getting quite a solid chunk of it. The number 420 leading that charge by 10.5 seconds to Josh Harris and Donnie Linton. Those 2 closer to each other right now than either of them have the hopes of being to the leading Ferrari. It could be a Ferrari 1-2 here with Josh Harris in 2nd place, with Donnie Linton still in pursuit. We'll have to catch up with that in a moment's time. There are yellow flags out, and it is for Donnie Linton. Down at Forest's elbow, he's into the pit lane. Is that the end of the road for Donnie Linton? He is back out, but he's going to be down a lap, so it seems. He's on the exit of the pit lane now. What on earth happened? There was an incident for him down at turns 17 and 18 at Forest's elbow. The 24 exits the pit lane now. He's going to be down a whole lap, so his progress completely wiped in the 24. Now, this is fantastic news for Tyler Vermack, who's now been, without any effort there, promoted to 3rd. Puts him ever closer to the fight, and bear in mind he's got a lot of time between now and the checkered flag to start reeling in Josh Harris. So there is a lot on the table here for the 25. Was definitely undone quite a way there by pitting way too early before the pit window had the opportunity to open. But Vermack is definitely back in the fight here. The question therein remains, of the three right now, who is most likely to take home that race win? Will it be Regent, who's come here pretty much as a tourist experience to get the mountain experience here in New South Wales? Will it be Harris, who's been gunning for a victory all season? Will it be Vermac, looking for very good first impressions in the 25 Mustang? Looking further behind, it's still quite sunny driving, really, as it were. Quite relaxed stuff for Porsche. 4th and 5th now for Ian Oates and Lee Evans. The two previously started on that 3rd row. They now found themselves upgraded, as it were, to the back of that top 5. Not too far away, though. Let's not take away from what is obvious here. If either of them slip up now, which is very easy to do in the Porsches, if you have even a moment of a lapse in judgment, the 66 of Antonio Cardoso will be on them like a bad habit in that Mercedes. In through turns 3 and 4 at the cutting, he's currently by his lonesome, separated amongst a pack of Porsches. Behind him, further down the road, is Henro Fori in the 32, currently leading in AM, but having yet to have served his mandatory pit stop with the pit window now shut, chances right now are looking a bit dire. Donnie Linton behind them in the 24, but with more damage on the nose of that BMW. Could that have been damage from his incident before, just coming back in as he's reloaded the car? Or has he managed to do the same thing twice? That would be rotten luck for the 24. Rudolf Zlaniak's in 9th place ahead of Jason Leatherby on what looks to be a potentially inherited AM win in the Bentley. So it's looking very strong for him right now. He's the only remaining AM driver to have taken his pit stop during the pit window. So he looks set right now for a shift in position by the end of today's race. 39 minutes left to go. He's ahead of Jason Leatherby, who's in the pit lane in the number 86. And that seems to be on emergency grounds. The yellow flag's out for the opening straight. And actually, having not been recognized at all as being in the pit lane, this is an emergency stop we're seeing out of Leatherby. Could that be the end of the road for Aston Martin today? The only Aston Martin in round 6 of the championship comes to a halt in the pit lane. We'll have more information as and when we can. The 38 of Recap also found himself caught out of the pit window. One of 3 drivers now stranded before the end of today's race. Then at the back of the field right now, as it stands, with those 3 still having yet to have served their mandatory pit stops, it does leave perhaps some gaps open for Daniel Hatton. It could be a very late-winded redemption, as it were, for the 55. Currently nearest fights between the 2 Porsches, Oates and Evans, last separated there by 1.2 seconds. They make their way up through Quarry. Currently no updates on the 86 of Jason Leatherby. He's still in the pit lane. And with no signs of emerging, we still do not yet know the status for the 86. Watching here with the twin Porsches, Oates and Evans potentially looking to get into a scrap. Now, it's unlikely given the two seem to be almost teaming in today's race, but they've been playing off of each other's strengths and weaknesses. The 2 Porsches could be getting head-to-head here, and it would be very, very nice to see heading down the Conrod Straight. A real treat for the eyes and ears with those flat 6s screaming down 1.9 kilometers of FIA Grade 2. Actually, I believe this area is FIA Grade 3. What a soundtrack. Of course, Oates and Evans have both competed in Porsches over the course of the last couple of months as it stands. They competed in Season 9 of VSR Phoenix in the Porsche 911 992 GT3 Cup car, of which we have the tech specs for you here on the right-hand side. That's what they were driving over the course of that season. Sadly came to a screeching halt as it was prematurely cancelled after round 14 at Alton Park. We were covering every single round. That's available on the TRTN YouTube channel now on our archive. They like their Porsches, and really you've got to respect good taste when you see it. 8th generation now, the Porsche 911, a car that stood the test of time since the 1950s. It is really the epitome of if it's not broke, don't fix it. They had the perfect design right off the bat with the 901. They didn't stop since. We look around the field here, cutting away from the two Porsches. We find the third of our Porsches right now, the number 32, Henro Fori. Now, it's looking a little bit bleak here, the future for the current AM leader in today's race, as he finds himself caught out of that pit window, still with a mandatory pit stop to serve. The consequences looming yonder the horizon when he gets across that. Oh my goodness, did you see the car control there on the exit of Murray's? Look at that on the replay. Proper fishtailing out of the 32. It just kind of goes to show, in the argument we've been having about the stability of those Porsches, this is just how fine a line these drivers walk. That was a very minor kick out over the grass, a little tap there. Oh my goodness, that was sketchy. In the pit lane at the moment, still Robert Ogan. We now check in with Rudolph's Laniacs. I'll actually have to cut away from them at the moment, as we do see things are getting even closer in that fight of fourth place. Now 0.4 of a second between Oates and Evans, making their way in towards the chase. Cutting on board here with the trailing of two, the number 6 of Ian Oates, now looking to take the fight to his comrade in arms, the 44 of Lee Evans. Two Porsches go head to head. I mean, this is a real treat for the ears. We're going to turn the volume up just so that you can hear the sound of those screaming flat sixes as we head down into turn 1. What a treat for the ears, honestly. One of the best sounding cars in this game. I'd say it's a very tough competition as to what I would say is definitively the best. I've got quite a soft spot for the Aston Martin V12 Vantage, of which we've seen driven several times in other championships. But, I'll tell you what, you can't beat a good Porsche Flat 6. You really, really cannot. It brings me back to when I was at I think it was the 2022 British Grand Prix over at Silverstone. They had the Porsche Super Cups out. They were the loudest things going. I'd say they were even louder than the F3s and perhaps even the F2s that have pushed there. They were proper screamers. You could tell exactly where they were on track at any one point by just the sound of the engine. So down towards Forest's elbow. We've seen very close following between Oates and Evans at this time. Oates finds himself still on the back foot in that fight for fourth place. We cut away from him to get on board with Evans, the leading of two now, as he makes his way down the Conrod Straight. Slightly shorter than the Mountain Straight, of course. Actually, no, sorry, slightly longer than the Mountain Straight. The Mountain Straight 1.1 kilometers, the Conrod Straight 1.9. Both of them give great opportunity for these drivers to get all the way to the top gear. 32 minutes left to go, though, with these being the only closest fights on track right now. Let's get a look at where things stand, as we do find ourselves in a bit of a mixed bag here in Bathurst, with Regent leading by 8.8 seconds, a gap withering between Vermack and Harris. That could be one to watch in the next couple of laps here. We're watching with what is currently the closest fight on track for fourth place between Evans and Oates, and the twin Porsches at the back of that top 5. Antonio Cardoso in 6th place with Mercedes ahead of Henro Fori in 7th. Donnie Linton in 8th with Rudolph Laniacs in 9th place ahead of Recap at the back of the top 10. Daniel Hatton in 11th and Jason Leatherby in 12th, with several DNFs today. As a matter of fact, we can now confirm the 86 is back out on track. Leatherby is back into this race, but down in 12th place. And see more and more confidence for Evans now. There have been quite a lot of concerns between both him and Oates for stability on the exit of Forest's elbow, but we can see things are starting to wrap up nice, neat and tidy for them as we head into the final 30 minutes of racing. We've been racing for a little under an hour now. We're quickly approaching that mark, only about 45 seconds now off of being an hour into today's race. As we enter that second half, the gaps are starting to close up inside of that top 5. And it's definitely a broadly different scene we find ourselves in compared to that opening half. There was absolute bedlam over the course of today's race here in Bathurst. Maybe not as much as we've seen historically, but it's still been an absolute riot here in the land down under. We head down past the opening straight in towards Hell Corner at turn 1. Still watching with Evans and Oates, the twin Porsches, currently fighting for 4th place. We're just keeping a close eye out for the gap currently between 2nd and 3rd. Josh Harris versus Tyler Vermack. This could be one to watch in the near future. Currently, their gap resides at about 4 seconds. So keeping an eye on that situation as it develops. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can go and catch on board with the man caught in the middle right now, a spectator to what could be this fight of 2nd place. Harris up in front of him there. You can see out back, not too far away, is Tyler Vermack, about 2.5 seconds off of the Bentley on your screens at the moment. Currently leading, or set to lead, I should say, in the AM category, if those penalties are as severe as we are led to believe for the currently leading AM car of Henro Frory. Still yet to have taken a pit stop. Not that they've got the options anymore with the pit lane closed. This is something we've been discussing on TRTN for some time in the background of a lot of these larger races we've been covering, and it's that we are starting to see a bit of a renaissance for the niche car. We've seen the re-emergence over the last couple of months, the last couple of years, as a matter of fact, of Lexus. We've seen even little sprinklings of Nissan in the mix, and now we're starting to see the rise of Bentley. And these are all cars that were relatively unorthodox, and I think it's what we're finding ourselves in. These are sort of key indicators of a fan base that is growing tired with the current medium, because never before in the heat of competition would a lot of these drivers be considering these cars as a mainline option. But here we find time and time again people are now, with very limited options left, looking to experiment, such as the case for Laney X. I don't think many people back in the heat of ACC's prime would be considering the Bentley. It was a solid little motor, but especially when you consider only a few years ago, quite a recent memory in the history of sim racing was the introduction to console ACC for cars like the Ferrari 296, the McLaren 720S, and even more recently the Ford Mustang. They dominated, and even then as well the BMW M4, they dominated and are still figurehead appearances over the course of a race. And we've just seen there, Henro Frory is into the pit lane after an incident down at McPhillamy Park. So down towards Brock's Skyline, there was trouble for the 32. Frory's into the pit, so that gives right now Laney X clear line into the lead of the AM division. So he's looking to get a division win here in the 112 Bentley. The niche car may reign supreme here in Bathurst. We'll catch up with him later on, as now he's seceded to give way to what is a developing fight here as we drop nearly to within a second between Harris and Vermack. We'll stay on board with the 401. This is going to get quite exciting here. These are two very solid drivers. Vermack emerging from parts outside of MSC into the competition proper. And we see Josh Harris, who is a staple part of this championship, one of its most competent fighters, now looking to clash heads with the newbie for 2nd place. This could get mega here between the 401 and the 25. Heading down the Conrod Straight, you can see the Ford just reeling him in. He's got him on the line and is just slowly reeling in that 401. There's not an awful lot that Harris can do when he's on a straightaway. What he's got to hope for now, he needs to try and hold position by the time he hits turn 2 at Griffin's Bend. That is his primary objective, because he knows if he can keep Vermack behind, the Mustang, he has very limited options to get around him. But look at this here. Josh Harris has moved over. Moved over for Tyler Vermack. What on earth was the thought process behind that? 26 minutes against the line. He could have pushed those tyres to the end of the race. What was the element that forced Harris into this decision? Was it the case that he knew that fighting up the mountain straight was futile and a fruitless endeavor that only would have created more risk than opportunity? It's definitely a bit of a bizarre one there, that Harris would just roll over to let the 25 on by. There's got to be some method to what is inherently madness here for what could have been a very solid fight of 2nd place. I must say that is quite underwhelming. In through the cuttings then. Let's see what Harris has in mind. And see that whatever strategy he did have in mind is starting to slip away here, because Vermaak is not showing any signs of slowing down. If anything, Harris has kneecapped himself in an area he knew the Ferrari would have had advantage in. Now as he makes his way out of McPhillamy, Vermaak's up the road. You can see he properly leaps down in through Skyline, then into the S's and the Dipper. Shows absolutely no fear in that section. It's 1.5 seconds now. That battle for second, bankrupt for Josh Harris. Very bizarre stuff indeed. Not a particularly compelling sign for the race leader at the moment, knowing that the only thing to stand in the way between himself and a race win has just moved out of the way of Tyler Vermaak. So for Regent, he's going to be sweating bullets here, especially with some upset on his rear quarter out through the chase. The gap currently 10 seconds and dropping. It is now a case in the next 25 minutes, unless he can seriously pull something out of his hat here. It is a case of when and not if Vermaak will be alongside him. It is genuinely quite a dreaded experience. There's almost the palpable fear in the air over who could lead this race. 24.5 minutes left to go. The clock is ticking. Question is, does Regent have enough time? You can see the physical gap there. These two share a straight on their way down towards turn 2. This could get very, very dicey. We've seen these two fight before, and we've seen them fight under much more stringent circumstances. When they now have nothing to lose, this could get incredibly dicey. This is something I am actually thoroughly looking forward to. Both of these drivers have come in to the championship quite recently to compete or to experience the track, such as the case of Regent. He's getting a very good experience of it right now, but seemingly we are seeing that slow procession up to the race lead for Tyler Vermaak. This isn't going to be helping Regent at all. A scrub against the wall of death, and so too was the case there for Donnie Linton in the background. Down in 7th place, the 24 against the wall of death. Heading down into Skyline Hill, a little bit of an upset there for Regent. If we get on board with Vermaak, you can see that difference in the line down through Skyline Hill. It just rockets down through there. How on earth is he able to perfectly nail the brakes every single time he draws in seconds on the corner? And that's not been exactly the kind of news that the 420 wanted to hear, because in at the wall, there's Regent. Vermaak leads out of turn 18. Regent into the pit lane. Emergency recovery for the 420. The 25 now leads here in Bathurst after a dramatic end to Regent's time here in New South Wales. Could that be the end of his day here? The 420 succeeds. The 25 now given the green light to go to the checkered flag unopposed. 22, make it nearly 23 minutes to the line. Vermaak leads. We'll try and get a word out of Regent. I know that he's a frequent visitor to our Twitch chat, so I'll have no doubt that we can get a word out of him as to exactly what went on. It looked like stability issues early doors for him there, so I would not be too surprised if that is ultimately what gave rise to his incident down there. I wouldn't be too surprised either, especially given its positioning that he ping-ponged off the walls at the S's. It's very easy to end up down there, especially pinned in at the wall after an incident like that. He's going to send a link to his stream in the Discord later. And seemingly, he's suggesting right now, and I can't exactly word it verbatim. Those of you who are watching the stream archive will see the live chat. You'll see what words he wanted to use. But I can't repeat it verbatim, but he is suggesting throttle, pedal, and brake pedal sensors are kaput on that car. I must say, given the fact that he was able to do that much of the race on faulty pedals, Lord only knows I know the struggles of faulty pedals. I mean, I'm still on a G920. I'm trenches level suffering there, but that is really, it does take quite a solid driver to be able to work with faulty gear for that long. I think it was, again, probably only a matter of time. Faulty equipment is one of the leading killers of those races for a lot of people. We've seen even the most experienced drivers will inevitably run into hardware failure, and it seemingly has caught up to Regent today. But this is all fantastic news for Tyler Vermaak. The 25 leads here in Bathurst. 21 minutes to the line. We'll get a look with the nearest fights on track at the moment. Right now, it's a bit of a spread out affair after that most recent fight. Or lack thereof, I should say. The 401 moved out of the way. Harris now up to second. The 420 was being chased down but hit the wall. In the pits at the moment, Rudolf Slanieks in the 112. We'll see what's going on there for the Bentley. He's into the pit lane, 20.5 minutes left to go. The case is now that he's lost seemingly the lead of the AM division. And by the looks of it, unless it's disqualification these drivers are getting for crossing the checkered flag without having served their mandatory pit stops, Lanieks could actually lose the AM division win here in Bathurst at round 6 of the championship. See right now, still on board with Tyler Vermack, riding in the wake of the number 24, Donnie Linton up in front. You saw a little bit of aero wash out from the nose of that Mustang. Had to do a few corrections down through the S's and the dipper there for Vermack, looking to try and get up and around Donnie Linton now as you head down the Conrod. Bear in mind the BMW and the Ford are two of the fastest cars in circulation at this time for ACC. So heading down the Conrod straight here, unless Linton succeeds, it's actually going to be a very hard time there. We did just see for the 25. It was otherwise going to be a very hard time for him to actually get up and around. We see even more issues compounded for the 112. So now as we check back in on Rudolf Slanieks, on his way down through the S's, are there any indications of major damage for that Bentley? Doesn't appear it this time around. Right now for Donnie Linton, it's all coming up relatively neutral for him. He still finds himself around that middle of the top 10, where in which he started the race from. So he's still going to be ending today with a pretty solid note, all things considered. He's had quite a few solid fights, namely with the 401 earlier on today. But, you know, he's had his ups, he's had his downs, and that's really kind of what Bathurst is all about. It's sort of a microcosm compared to tracks like, say, for example, the Nürburgring Nordschleife, which we visited recently here on TRTN. You do get the same kind of results here. The drivers do split out quite a ways because it is a tough track. It is a track that really demands, above all things, focus. Because one slip, and we've already seen the consequences of it firsthand, and this can happen to drivers of all manner of skill and experience. Checking in now, this time with Daniel Hatton in the 55, on his way down towards the chase. And it's the same story for him as well. He's had quite the ups and downs of today's race. This, to be fair, with Bathurst, from what I've been able to observe firsthand, this is McLaren's Achilles heel. This track is a 720S killer. The 720S is already a little bit uneasy when it comes to elevation changes, and moreover when it comes to curbs. We've seen that it can be very, very flaky, and even in the case of drivers who've got quite a lot of experience behind the wheel of most especially the 720S, such as the case we saw earlier on for Russell Nash, it can even catch them out. This track is the worst enemy of the McLaren 720S, and they seem to be among the highest casualty rates here in Bathurst of any races I've been able to observe firsthand. Everything that the McLaren has problems with is present and is endemic to this track.
on board at the moment with the Mercedes of Antonio Cardoso. Now, it's been a very silent procession to the top 5 here for Cardoso. He's had a very understated performance, but the Portuguese talent finds himself at the back of the top 5, and that's not by a fluke. He has nailed things in terms of consistency. So consistent, he's found himself quite routinely sneaking around larger scale battles, just chipping away at everyone else to put himself in a very solid points position. I'd say that takes some serious accountability there. He's really come to terms with what he's capable of in terms of a fight, whereabouts he needs to aim for on times, and he has been brutally efficient when it comes to today's race. That is really quite something, and I think that is one of the best parts of the Mercedes, and I think this is a great case where you see the car complement the driver. Now, a lot of car choice in this game does end up being formed based on either preference or compromise. We do find here that this is almost perfect for his playstyle. He needs a car that's reliable, he needs a car that's consistent, and a car that doesn't really have many thrills or spills in terms of its handling quirks. It is a very jack-of-all-trades vehicle, the Mercedes, much like the Aston Martin for that matter. And that is why it's such a popular choice. It's a little pointier, I would say, than the Aston from first-hand experience and from speaking with drivers who've got a lot more experience than I with the Mercedes over the Aston. But it is still in that ballpark of these very consistent, very comfy cars. They don't require a lot of wrestling or a lot of sort of adaptation over the status quo to control. They're a very solid choice of vehicle. Weirdly enough, though, I've not seen the same in the Ford. I've seen quite a mixed bag of opinions towards the Ford. Some are saying it's too loose, some are saying it's too stiff. But it is definitely a polarizing choice when it comes to the front engine meta. I wouldn't say it got anywhere near the amount of universal praise the BMW did on launch. In fact, this car has somewhat come to be a bit reviled in the sim racing community, especially under LFM balance of performance, because it has given rise to the whole notion that Ford is overpowered in ACC. Personally, I think it still takes a certain caliber of driver to put the Ford where it is. We've seen plenty of series come and go and are still underway where Ford is not directly dominating, but they have a very good chance of it. See, joining us in chat there, Christian LeBay, just joining us now. 13 minutes left to go in what has been 90 minutes of racing here in Bathurst. A very mixed bag, but the bottom line, after the dust settles here, we're seeing leading this race by 9.4 seconds, Tyler Vermack in the number 25 Mustang. On his way currently down towards Skyline Hill. I do not tire of looking at the way he runs down through Skyline Hill. It's effortless. There's no ounce of fear being expressed in that drive. No hesitation. It's just, it looks damn near flat out from our point of view. With that overhead camera, it is damn near flat out. Obviously, that's not the case. He's getting down onto the brakes, but just the amount of speed he could carry down into that section where we've seen drivers hesitate, where we've seen them get on the brakes, where we've seen the cars step out a little bit, jut here, jut there. That Ford is absolutely on rails. Now looking further around the field, also on the Conrod straight at this time, the number 24, Donnie Linton. 12 minutes left to go then as things start to simmer down quite a ways, as we now are left with those who have survived more so than competed in today's race. It is a case here that Bathurst, much in the story of Icarus, reflects upon ambition. If you fly too close to the proverbial sun, your wings are gonna melt and it's gonna hurt on your way down. And we've seen that for a lot of drivers today. You fly a little too close to those track limits and it'll get you, especially down here at Solman. We've seen quite a few drivers there on what is our left-hand side, their right-hand side, get in with the wall of death there. And that has been sort of the catalyst event for major incidents down the line, especially here at Brock Skyline. One thing that we've noticed, though, as well with Bathurst, it is nailing this section that is what separates drivers from race wins. If you can nail that section like we've been seeing out of the 25 so far of Vermack, and bear in mind, we'll be going to Bathurst again, so there's a very good chance with how airtight competition's been over on the Console Endurance Series of seeing multiple drivers do what we've just seen out of the 25 today. If you can nail that run out through McPhillamy, as we're seeing here, this is Henry Forey taking his shot down at turn 11, 12 and 13. If you can nail the run from Skyline down to the Dipper and the S's as you make your way to Forest's Elbow, that is a huge difference in skill to take that area in the speeds we've been seeing today, because it is one of the toughest areas with such little room for compromise. It is one step out of line, 1 inch to the left or right past the apex, and you're finished. It is an absolute car killer. So, as we drop onto 10 minutes left to go here in Bathurst, here is the current scope of things. Tyler Vermack leads in the 25 ahead of the 401 Ferrari of Josh Harris. Lee Evans in third with Ian Oates in fourth. Antonio Cardoso in fifth ahead of Donnie Linton and Rudolf Slaniek's sixth and seventh. Daniel Hatton in eighth. And then we can see a bit of a worrying sign as the pit window shut quite some time ago. It leaves 3 drivers at the back of the field stranded. Henro Fori, Recap, and Jason Leatherby. So for Rudolf Slaniek, he's grinning ear to ear to see that he has now got undisputed free reign of the AM category. He'll be taking home a division win today here in Bathurst by the way that things stand right now. As we drop dead on to that 10-minute mark, it's not too long from the line now. Functionally, about 5 more laps for the majority of drivers today. Could be even less than that before the end of round 6. Looking at where we'll be over the course of the next couple of rounds of the championship, taking us into the next round here on MSC, the drivers will be heading over to Kyalami, just on the outskirts of Johannesburg, South Africa, for a 45-minute sprint race, then over to the Nürburgring for the Nordschleife for a 2-hour endurance race. And what would have been round 10 is now actually round 8, as they'll be heading back to rounds 1 and 2 that were delayed at the start of the season. Back to the Hungaroring for round 9 for 45 minutes of sprint racing, and then rounding things out at the genesis of American motor racing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for round 10 of the championship. Shows up there as round 2. Looking up here onto the podium, Josh Harris in the 401 has definitely got his fair share today of good fights in that Ferrari, and that seems to be almost customary here for Harris's career path over the course of MSC. We've seen him a very constant presence in and amongst every fight, and a very, very solid fighter in his own respect. Right now, though, seemingly no one capable of standing 10 toes alongside Tyler Vermack in that number 25. It's unparalleled domination of the field, not even that we saw out of the likes of the 999. And speaking of, looking back into those previous race wins we saw at the start of the season, a hat-trick of victories for Russell Nash, but today, much is the same as it was in Japan. He's out of this race. That round 4, was won overall by an AM driver, Leroy Donald, who is also out of this race today. Then the last round just gone over at the Circuit Zolder was won by Ian Oates with Porsche. Down towards the line goes the 401. Previous lap at 203.835. He's 18 seconds up the road from Lee Evans at the back of that podium right now. For the Porsches, they are seeing a great upgrade. They started 5th and 6th. They're up on the 2nd row. So Evans, and as we're seeing on our screen here, this is Ian Oates down in 4th place in the 6th, and the number 6 car, I should say. Seeing a great result today. They will not be scoffing at that at all. 2 positions a piece there for both of them. They're not going to be arguing with where they stand as the checkered flag drops. That's a great turnaround for Porsche today. Evans, though, you can see has got quite the gap up the road now from Oates. As he's making his way toward the runnings over the crest into turn 2 at Griffin's Bend, we've just seen heading on to the mountain straight there was Ian Oates. We check in now with the race leader. Tyler Vermack finds himself in a flurry of traffic. There among them was Leatherby and Recap. Those two potentially, are they actually looking at a fight for position as it stands? Not with the amount of laps currently attributed to the 86. Leatherby finds himself currently 3rd in division, but 11th overall with 5 laps under his belt away from the race leader. So as he navigates traffic here, Tyler Vermack with about 6 minutes on the clock makes his way to the line. That'll be functionally, looking at it here, about 3 more laps in today's race. You can see here the car in second place we were watching earlier on with Josh Harris. He makes his way down towards the line. He'll be among that podium sitters in the next 6 or so minutes as it stands. We'll get on board though with Tyler Vermaak making his way up the mountain straight. We'll leave you on board with the 25 as he makes his way in towards lap 40. We'll be back again in just a moment's time. So still on board with Tyler Vermaak. Now we want to try and get you over the nose of this car to see that run down through Skyline Hill, just to sort of find method where there is madness in this run for the 25. And you can see just how clinically precise he is when it comes to commanding that Mustang. Every single move there so rigorously thought out for the number 25. Every downshift, every application of the brakes there. That was something else for Tyler Vermaak. Had you any wonder how the 25 has led by such a far distance over the course of this race, look no further than to just that. And bear in mind, that's not even his fastest lap. His fastest lap is 2 seconds over his last. So that really does go lengths to describe here the kind of talent brought to the table by the 25 today. Bear in mind, this is appearing to be one of his opening rounds here in MSC. And Vermaak right now off with an absolute bang on what could have been a victory today for Regent had it not been for the out of his hands situation that was this hardware failure that took the 420 out of the charge down through the S's in towards turn 18. It will look to be a relatively undisputed victory on the charts here for the 25. 3 minutes left to go then. We're amongst the final 2 laps here in round 6 of the championship for season 2, the MSC GT3 Clubsport series here on console. Right now, Vermaak looking to enter that history book. We see here with Evans making his way down towards Skyline. You can see towards the end of this race that Porsche is finding quite a bit of confidence there. You can see him hooking closer and closer to that first apex on the run through turn 11. There's still great hopes here for Evans and Oates. Both of the Porsches really pulling through for a solid result today. Of course, having mentioned that from earlier on, they both moved up 2 positions from race start. Up from that 3rd row to the 2nd. For Henro Fori, he's one of 3 drivers to find themselves in a very uncomfortable spot right now. The future seems a little uncertain for the 32. One of 3 cars still yet to have done their mandatory pit stop, but with the pit lane having slammed shut on them, they missed their opportunity to come into the pit lane. It leaves things a bit open-ended as to what is going to happen to Henro Fori. 1.5 minutes left to go. Tyler Vermaak, I believe, might be on for 1 more lap after this one, though it's going to be quite tight here for the 25. Cutaway here from Henro Fori's point of view, just to quickly get a look here with what could be the AM Division winner of round 6, Rudolf Slanieks in the number 112 Bentley on his way currently out of turn 1. Looks to potentially try and unlap himself from the 24 of a wounded BMW. That is Donnie Linton up in front of him there in 6th place. Now, he's been dealing with that damage over the course of the last 20 or so minutes. So, right now, does he secede position to the 112? Let him run him around the outside. It's going to be up to the 112 to decide. Nearly into the wall there. Donnie Linton getting his elbows out against unlapping traffic. Very bizarre stuff indeed. Let's get on board with the 25. Tyler Vermack only 30 seconds from the end of today's race, making his way down towards the chase on the Conrod Straight right now. 25 seconds left to go. Is it going to be one more lap from the number 25 here? Is he going to pump the brakes just a little bit to end things nice and early? Heading down towards turns 20, 21 and 22. Tyler Vermack looks to enter the history books here at round 6 of the championship. Could it be this lap? Could it be next? Down towards turn 23 we go. The number 25 shortly awaited at what could be the checkered flag. It's going to be all the way down to the line, though, for Tyler Vermack. Across the line he goes, and with the checkered flag in front of him, Tyler Vermack wins in round 6. Unbelievable win on debut, I believe it were there for Tyler Vermack. Unstoppable pace by the number 25. Josh Harris takes home 2nd place then. A brilliant performance by him today. Lee Evans up onto the podium with Porsche, and not too far off of him, Ian Oates for an all Porsche 2nd row. We've still one more winner to crown, though. You can see heading down towards the line, Lee Evans. Right now in front of him appears to be Jason Leatherby with the Aston Martin team. Down towards the line to take the last of those podium positions then. Evans in the number 44. He'll revel in a fantastic result for Porsche today. You can see behind the number 6 of Ian Oates looks to be the AM Division winner of today, Rudolf Slanieks, in the number 112. So down across the line, Ian Oates, 4th place. And then from behind him, your AM Division winner for round 6 of the championship, Rudolf Slanieks, the Latvian talent in the number 112 Bentley, victorious in round 6. Then across the line a moment from now as he makes his way onto the Conrod. That is Antonio Cardoso in the number 66, looking to take home a very solid and respectable top 5. We'll get the full results up in a moment's time, as already a few drivers have peeled out the situation, and really with the way things have been going in today's race, it's not too hard to see where that sentiment comes from. It has been a very tough one here at round 6 of the championship. Vermack victorious in round 6. In the overall and pro category, the 112 takes home the AM victory. You can see the full results there and the death toll that followed here at round 6 for 4 DNFs from Regent, Leroy Donald, Russell Nash and Jonathan Barrett. What a result, though, for Vermack on debut. The number 25 wins in Bathurst. Rudolf Slanieks wins in the AM category. Otherwise, the podium looking as this: Vermack, Harris and Evans. Ford, Ferrari and Porsche, 3 of the most iconic brands in the world of motor racing, adorn the podium here at round 6 of season 2. What a result then. Definitely took a long way to get there. An hour and a half of racing gave us quite the battleground here in New South Wales, Australia. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Well done to our drivers today. Take care and good night.